This young man is kneeling before the Demon King, offering his sword to her. To arrive at this outcome, the hero Frey had personally slain all his comrades and those who trusted him most. Now back in reality, the Demon King stands before him. She laughs with glee, pointing as she speaks, "I've truly never heard of a hero and a Demon King cooperating with each other. Now just destroy that sword and it will all be over." Frey kneels before her, and then the aura of the sword gradually turns blue. Frey mutters in his thoughts, at least in that moment of hesitation, the sword in his hand flashes with a blue light. Seeing this, the Demon King stares in astonishment, muttering, "This aura is..." Then right after that, Frey stands drawing his sword as energy erupts powerfully from it. The Demon King watches him warily. She screams at him, "What are you doing?" Frey smirks at her. "There's no need to be so surprised. My plan was simply to take you down with me right here." Then Frey charges toward the Demon King, thinking, "This way a path will open for me to save the world I once destroyed. It's a path of regression where I can save everyone I love." In a daze, Frey startles awake, panting and drenched in sweat as he lies in bed. After bolting upright and looking around, there's no more doubt this familiar space is his home. Frey gets out of bed, slips on his shoes, and then grabs a nearby calendar. He stares at it silently for a moment. "The day I entered the academy, it's really that day." Suddenly he remembers the system. A notification window appears. "The path of a false villain. The fate of the one who destroyed the world. Play the role of a true villain and a path to save the world will open. If you succeed, the happiness you desire will be yours. This is the reward for personally destroying the world and perishing alongside the Demon King." Outside the window, sunlight shines into the room. Frey purses his lips. "I finally did it." Next, the system window displays a hidden route. He then rips the calendar to shreds and throws it on the floor, tears streaming down his face. "This time I will save everyone." 10 years ago, at a grand castle, a curious voice asks, "What are these squiggly characters that look like worms?" This is a young Frey. Hearing this, his father glances over and smiles, replying, That's called Hang On. Only those who inherit the blood of the Starlight Hero clan can read it." Frey, walking beside him, speaks up, "Oh, you mean the characters written in those ancient books?" "Both of them." Stop in front of an entrance. His father stands with his arms crossed and reminds Frey, "From now on, you must walk this path alone." Frey looks bewildered. "Huh, but what about you, Dad?" His father then places a hand warmly on his shoulder. "Frey, you absolutely must persevere. You've heard the prophecy circulating throughout the Empire, right? When the Demon King is defeated, his successor will appear 1,000 years later and the world will be devoured. But at that very moment, a hero will appear and save the world." Frey recalls the statue of his sword-wielding hero ancestor and says to his father, "That's the last testament of the ancestor who defeated the Demon King, right?" His father replies gently, "That's correct, but that is only the prophecy intentionally spread throughout the Empire." He then adds mysteriously, "There is another prophecy that has been passed down through each generation of our family. That prophecy states that 1,000 years after the Demon King's defeat, the successor to the Demon King and the destined hero would appear, and that 1,000-year mark is exactly now." Upon hearing this, Frey's eyes widened in astonishment, and he froze on the spot. Immediately after, a mysterious door swung open. Frey timidly stepped inside. His hands clenched as he cautiously scanned his surroundings. He glanced around, somewhat frightened, and mumbled, "I can't see anything." The door behind him suddenly slammed shut, startling him. He whipped his head around in panic and began pounding on the door, his eyes wide as he urgently screamed in fear, "Dad, Dad!" Suddenly, specks of light began to appear at Frey's feet. Confused, he looked down at them and let out a soft, He turned his head toward the lights, which resembled stars beneath his feet, and began to calm down, muttering in a daze. He didn't hesitate to step forward. Before him, a blue sword gleamed brightly. It seemed to be the legendary sword of the great hero. Frey reached out to grab it, but suddenly the room lit up and a black-haired man appeared, stopping him. "Stop," the man said. "It's still far too difficult for you to wield that." Frey, completely baffled, had no idea who this man was when the figure spoke up in annoyance. "You don't even recognize your own ancestor." Hearing this, Frey brought a hand to his mouth as he looked his ancestor up and down. That's weird. My ancestor is supposed to be a handsome man," he said, recalling the statue of his forefather outside. The ancestor saw this, clenched his fist in anger, and tried to calm himself, thinking he needed to restrain himself. After composing himself, he said to Frey, "Anyway, you came here to find a way to save the world, didn't you?" Frey, still looking utterly bewildered, asked, "Save what? I came here because my dad said this place could help me save my friends." Hearing this, the ancestor pointed his index finger and confirmed, "That's also part of saving the world, so your father wasn't wrong. Alright, now just listen. The world you're living in is currently set to a hard mode difficulty, and it's on a path that leads almost exclusively to a bad ending. Hearing this, a confused Frey bit his thumb, wondering to himself, bad ending, hard mode. The ancestor then looked at Frey with wide eyes and said, try to believe what you're about to see. This is your world after you've gone down the wrong path. Inside Frey's mind, the horrifying devastation of the war between the hero and the demons unfolded a vision of the failed timeline. A chart appeared showing everyone he knew, the heroines, his family, and his friends, all covered in blood and looking utterly tragic. A voice from the system suddenly rang out, their outcome death. Frey immediately collapsed to his knees. You see it now, don't you? A world that has reached a dead end. The ancestor stood watching him and thought, this reaction is to be expected. After all, the boy just witnessed himself losing everything he holds dear. Frey remained collapsed on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Now, the ancestor said, tell me your choice. Immediately, Frey forced out each word, I'll do it. He glared at his ancestor, accepting the path of regression. Tears of anguish streamed down his face, but his eyes were filled with determination. Just like you, my ancestor, I will become a true hero and save the world to protect everyone I hold dear. Hearing this, the ancestor looked down at him and calmly noted to himself, heavens, I nearly forgot. This kid is a hero too. Very well, I will tell you the only way to achieve a good ending. This is the only path to save yourself, your loved ones, and the world. But it won't be easy in the slightest. You must personally destroy the world and take the Demon King down with you, a fate sealed once you enter this hidden route. New challenges will await you, kid, but never lose your heart. Back in reality, inside a mansion bathed in brilliant sunlight, Frey stood by his desk, clenching his fist. Now I'm ready to achieve the Sati happy ending. Even though everything is the same after my regression, one thing has changed: the existence of the system. And next, Frey looked up at the system window as it was updating. This will be a powerful asset for my future. It's exactly like what I saw in the Book of Prophecy as a child. With my current abilities, I can still use it on the path my ancestor showed me. The user guide has also appeared. If I can master this system and complete the main story, I can protect this world where everyone is still alive. Suddenly, from outside, a knock was heard along with a familiar voice. Young master, it's me, Kana. May I come in? Hearing this, the young man composed himself. Ah, yes. He then thought to himself, I've endured so much to make it this far through my regression. Time to relax a little. Just then the system confirmed, update 100% complete. Frey mused, it's been a while, since I've seen my childhood friend Kana smile. Before he could finish his thought, the system blared a red warning notification. Threat detected. Hearing this, a confused Frey narrowed his eyes at the red system display, humming in thought as the door was quickly pushed open by Kana, who announced, then I shall let myself in. Immediately after, she lifted her eyes to look toward him, dressed in a respectful butler's uniform. Kana is also one of the female heroes. Just then, the system issued a red alert. All 5 female heroes have recovered their memories from the previous timeline. Seeing this, a horrified Frey yelled, what? How is that possible? Immediately, a blood-stained window appeared on the system explaining the path of a mock villain. If you chose to act as a villain and destroy the world in your previous life, in this life, the system will compel you to continue those actions, and if any good deeds you perform are discovered, you will suffer a penalty that will cause your life force to be significantly reduced. Such restrictions are necessary for completing the final hidden route. A blue notification then appeared, update complete. You can now use the full functions of the System Status Management item shop, temporarily locked, and skill shop. Mock villain points accumulated 100. Points are earned for any evil act, and you can use them to purchase necessary items or skills. Suddenly, an urgent notification flashed. All 5 female heroes candidates will have their memories from the previous timeline restored. Frey entered a state of utter panic. No one told me about this. Kana's voice rang out. Pardon my intrusion. She glared at him, her eyes filled with malice. Her body was bowed in a respectful posture, but her face was full of suspicion. Frey was petrified, trembling with wide, pale eyes. What is this intense, butler-killing intent? Kana, my butler, she was born with dark magic that erodes her own life force, and she is also one of the 5 heroes mentioned in the prophecy. If Kana has recovered her memories from the life before this regression. Frey paused, then recalled just how terribly he had bullied her. Frey had threatened Kana, being an orphan doesn't make you special, understand? Do you want to get kicked out? At this thought, Frey clutched his head in terror, breaking into a cold sweat. She could seriously strike me down at any moment. Next, Kana looked toward him and calmly asked, "Young master, are you? Care for a meal?" Frey, sitting awkwardly on the bed, waved his hand and confirmed, "Ah yes, the usual is fine." Kana huffed. With a murderous glint in her eyes, she glared at Frey with a chillingly cold demeanor. "Very well, sir." Moments later, the door was slammed shut. Slam. Seeing this, Frey huddled on the bed, biting his nails and trembling in fear. That icy stare, she definitely remembers everything. Even though I'm still not sure what's happening here, I have to think of a way to respond first. Suddenly, a notification interrupted his thoughts. The system displayed an urgent message. Seeing it, Frey yelled in confusion, "What is it now?" The system confirmed, pseudo-villain's intuition has detected a strong murderous aura nearby. Frey took a moment to regain his composure, stroking his chin and muttering, "A murderous aura. What do you mean by that?" Another system window appeared. Its contents reading as follows. Skill activated, pseudo-villain's intuition level 1. This skill detects a life-threatening danger once per day. Seeing this, Frey's eyes widened in horror. The only threat right now has to be Kana. But if she harms me, her master, she won't escape the consequences. Why would she do this? Is she trying to help the story's real hero by getting rid of me? Does she really hate me that much? Suddenly, the door opened again, a thick murderous aura pouring into the room, making Frey flinch. "I have brought your soup, young master." A thick dark aura emanated from the bowl of food. Frey understood the moment he saw it. "I see. I know what she's trying to do. She definitely cursed the food with black magic, intending for me to die an untimely death." Just then, she bowed respectfully and said, "Please enjoy your meal." Frey thought to himself, "Of course, to her, someone who remembers everything from before the regression, I must seem like nothing more than garbage. Fine, it looks like I'll have to handle this my own way." Suddenly, Frey spoke up. "Wait!" he called out, causing Kana to freeze. Then Frey glared at her, lifted the tray of food, and seething with rage yelled, demanding, "Who told you to bring me this garbage? Bring me a sandwich this instant." With that, he hurled the plate of food, which flew right past Kana's face, leaving her stunned and staring into the silent room. Meanwhile, he stood by the bed, panting after the throw. The system confirmed, 1 pseudo-villain point. Immediately after, Kana turned her head, grinding her teeth in fury. "I will prepare it at once, sir." The door was slammed shut with violent force. Seeing this, Frey could only glance in her direction and sigh helplessly. A few minutes later, Kana pushed the food cart back in. "Young master, the sandwich you requested is here." Once again, a strange aura emanated from the food, and Frey again found an excuse to reject it. "There's no cheese, make it again." At this, Kana looked up awkwardly, holding the plate, and glanced toward Frey. But before she could get a word out, he challenged her, "Are you talking back to me?" Immediately, she averted her gaze and muttered, "No, sir." This happened several more times. Kana would bring poisoned food, and Frey would naturally find every excuse to complain and avoid it, from the bread being too dry to the meal not being to his liking. Each time the system added another 1 pseudo-villain point. Behind him, Kana's face had darkened with rage. After about the 8th attempt, her body swayed and trembled. "The sandwich you requested is here, sir." Frey was astonished. The food was still poisoned. This girl is incredibly persistent. She's been at this so many times that her mana has hit rock bottom. Frey picked up the sandwich. Kana's eyes lit up, filled with hope, as if after all her efforts, she had finally succeeded. But things didn't go as she'd hoped. Frey smiled, tilted his head, and tossed the sandwich over his shoulder. "You know, on second thought, I think I preferred the soup from before. Make that again." Kneeling on the floor, Kana clasped her hands and looked up at Frey, her eyes suddenly filled with a sorrowful, disappointed sigh. A seemingly exhausted Kanya staggered unsteadily before collapsing to the floor. Frey also quickly moved to catch her, even tenderly stroking her head. How ironic. He only wished he could respond to her with even the slightest smile. Next, Frey laid her on his bed. "This small number of points I earned caused a situation far worse than I thought. I need to replenish her life force before it's too late. The only way to stabilize Kanya's dark magic is to fill her with another person's life force. I don't need a long life anyway, so using my own life force to sustain her is the best option." In a flash, evening arrived and Frey breathed a weary sigh. "It's finally done. Now I need to strategize a way out of this twisted situation. My knowledge from the regression didn't prepare me for this. I can't resolve it with my original plan anymore. There are about 2 months left before the main quest begins. Until then, I plan to lay low, preparing everything meticulously without drawing too much attention from any potential hero. I must act in secret to avoid revealing my identity, but to face a crisis that wasn't in the prophecy is another matter. Besides Kanya, there are still 4 other heroines to be wary of. Among them, my fiancé is traveling abroad, so I don't need to worry about her yet. Then there's Princess Klana, who is just a political puppet for now, so she's incapable of targeting me. Therefore, the real trouble right now is just Fochi and Arena. They are the ones I'll have to face as soon as I arrive at the academy. Saintess Fochi, despite being just a pawn of the church, can still spell my doom if I make a single misstep. The greatest threat is Arena. With her reckless and impulsive personality, it wouldn't be surprising if she tried to eliminate me during our very first meeting. As for Kanya, with her younger sister here as a hostage, she won't dare to act rashly. However, I urgently need to collect fake villain points by any means necessary. A lack of power or survival skills will only get me killed faster. The number of points I earned from Kanya while we were alone is still quite limited. I'll have to take bigger risks to gather more. Based on the information I've accumulated so far and the Book of Prophecy, I believe I can handle everything that comes my way. Tomorrow, I'll get everything in order. The real battle only truly begins after I enter the academy. The next morning, the sun peeked from behind the mountains. Frey sat on the floor beside Kanya's bed, a pile of papers scattered around him as he sighed, having been engrossed in the Book of Prophecy all night until dawn. Time to wake her up. Immediately after, he quickly lifted her off the bed and placed her right back down on the floor. After taking a deep breath, Frey put on an angry expression and shouted, "Hey! How long do you plan on lying there?" Startled Kanya shot up from the floor, exclaiming, "Yes, sir!" Kanya was taken aback, squinting with a questioning look. To cover his tracks, Frey retorted, "What's with that expression, or do you still want to make excuses? Today is the Academy's opening ceremony, isn't it? Hurry up and get the carriage ready." Behind him, Kanya quickly stood up, brushing the dust from her clothes. Yes, sir, as you wish." She scurried outside, hastily shutting the door. Frey then opened the system, sighing when he saw he had only accumulated 100 points. The system screen displayed, "Please select one of the options below." Status window management. Item shop temporarily locked. Skill shop. Fake villain points. Having accumulated 100 points, Frey thought to himself, it looks like I'll still need at least a few hundred more points to buy a skill or an item. The young man stood on the upper floor watching Kana prepare the carriage. Oh well, I guess I can only accumulate it little by little, in a non-lethal way. Life at the academy is about to get interesting. The scene changes to a banquet table. Surrounding Frey was a crowd of fawning sycophants. "Young Master Frey, your entrance speech was so moving." Seeing this, Frey spoke up, asking the man, "Oh, you have a good eye, don't you?" One of them poured wine while praising him. As expected, the great Tanir freshman representative for us men had to be someone from the greatest ducal family in this empire. Beside him, a blonde girl also chimed in with flattery, "Young Master Frey, you are truly amazing." Frey laughed heartily, a smug blushing grin on his face. Mom, know I'm famous for being perfect in every way." In reality, he knew their intentions all too well. These bootlickers, their motives were painfully obvious. Another sycophant ran up to him. "Young Master Frey, I'd like to ask you to introduce our products to the royal family. We've also brought a few girls who should suit your tastes." Frey held his wine glass and answered slowly, "We'll decide after I've seen enough of your sincerity." In his mind, he thought, are money and women all this trash cares about? It's not just the Demon King. I also need to do something about these corrupt nobles. But to earn more points from the system, I still need to play along with them. The system's voice confirmed plus 10 villainy points. Suddenly a loud curse rang out. "You damn woman! Let me go!" From the doorway, the cursing continued. "Get over here!" Then another man sneered as he shouted, "Achoo!" An announcement to Frey. "Young Master Frey, we brought her." The red-haired girl was Arena, screaming in defiance. "Damn it, let me go!" She was beaten and struggling, tears welling in her eyes as she gritted her teeth, bound and kneeling on the floor. Frey was utterly shocked by the sight. Arena? No way. How could she let them capture her? He then recalled what he knew from before his regression. In his past life, Arena's main element was fire magic, but she was a prodigy who could also use other elements. A true genius, no one should have been her match. Frey's face turned pale with panic. He turned away, thinking, could she have let them capture her on purpose to use this chance to wipe them all out from behind? Oh, the other man saw this and looked at Frey in confusion, his hand still gripping Arena's head. Frey was still lost in his bewildered thoughts. "System shop, I need to be careful." The system promptly announced emergency defense. Protects the target from one, fatal blow. Consumable item. Purchase limit 0 out of 3. Requires 70 coins. Frey exclaimed in his mind with excitement, "This is perfect." He immediately walked up to Arena looking at the system with a panicked expression thinking, the points I earned. And from Kana the other day really came in handy. Meanwhile, Arena was still gritting her teeth in fury. Suddenly Frey's face darkened startled. Tequil as he glanced at the floor. Then the system displayed a notification Irina Fiat. Current status mana depletion. Frey stood frozen. Mana depletion. How could a genius like Arena be out of mana? Don't tell me she planned to gather her mana to blow us. All up in one go? Arena suddenly screamed, don't even think I'll forgive you filthy bastards. There was another girl next to her whose hair was being pulled, who screamed in both pain and helplessness, please stop seeing this one of the men. Also glared furiously at Arena, grabbing her by the hair and yanking her head up, snarling, shut your mouth, you vulgar wench. Meanwhile, Frey holding a wine glass looked on and enunciated every word, get out now. Seeing this, the other man looked back at Frey, his eyes widening in a surprised smile as he asked, pardon me, my lord? What did you say? Enraged, Frey smashed his glass on the floor and glared. He screamed at the man, I command you to get the hell out, I want to have my fun with them, understand? At that, the two men, as startled, immediately let go. Yes, sir. The moment they stepped outside, Frey resumed his role as a degenerate scoundrel. Now then, let's have a little fun, shall we, little lady? Arena gritted her teeth, her eyes narrowing in disgust as she growled, you disgusting, despicable bastard. If I had known it would come to this, I would have used my ultimate magic on you instead of on the Demon King's army. Frey scoffed, releasing Arena's chin. What's all that barking for? Do you need my help learning how to shut that insolent mouth of yours? No! With a smile that couldn't be more degenerate, he reached out to touch Arena. Filled with indignation, Arena squeezed her eyes shut. Gritting her teeth, she thought, damn it, I should have saved just enough mana to end my own life. The moment her tear-filled eyes fluttered open, ta-ta. Arena froze, stunned to see Frey had already collapsed on the floor. The female student beside her quickly tugged at the ropes binding her hands. Frowning, she rushed over to Arena. It looks like he's passed out drunk. Let's get out of here quick. We were so lucky. I heard that if we get caught, by them, the consequences would be horrific. Immediately, Arena and her friend made a run for it, though she hadn't even reached the door yet. She was still cursing. That guy's a bastard too. He treats commoners like us as if we're nothing more than slaves. Meanwhile, Frey, who was behind them, had lifted his head to watch them go. He cracked open one eye to check on them before lying back down on the floor, draping an arm over his forehead. He sighed, thinking, thanks to my little performance, everyone else was driven away. That risky move was only possible. Because I had an emergency defense skill. Just then, the system announced 10 points for trashy drunkard act. The clock struck 12. At o'clock noon, the system suddenly announced, emergency defense has been activated. Target Irina Fiat. Details a 12-hour curse. That guarantees the chosen target's death 12 hours after the curse is activated. Can be used once per year, and the caster will suffer a backlash, leaving them completely depleted of mana for an entire year. Seeing this, Frey thought to himself, I almost bit the dust just now. From behind, Kania slowly approached him, her expression dark. Young master. Startled, Frey sat up, his eyes crinkling into a smile as he feigned drunkenness, pointing at her and laughing. Oh, Kania, hehe. Kania reminded him, you shouldn't be sleeping in a place like this, sir. She then supported him by the shoulder, but Frey, taking advantage of the situation, poked her cheek. I can't walk. Carry me on your back. While supporting him, Kania's brow furrowed in irritation before she hoisted him onto her back. If only you were always this obedient. It would be so much better. Settled comfortably on Kania's back, Frey thought, man, what a clown I am. A true hero. Shouldn't have to resort to this, but whatever works. And at least this way I can replenish her vitality. Suddenly a voice filled with resentment echoed, Frey, you're still as much of a bastard as ever. A thick killing intent began to permeate the air. If it weren't for my little sister, I would have finished you right then and there. His eyes flashed as brightly with alarm as a memory from before his regression suddenly surfaced. Young Master Frey, this is for you. Kania and her younger sister were playing cheerfully while Frey was climbing a tree to retrieve their hat. The little girl called out worriedly, Frey, come down quickly, it's dangerous. But he called back. Agnes reassuringly, it's okay, I've almost got it. Then he fell and broke his arm. The little girl sat beside Frey's bed, sobbing uncontrollably. As Irina grew up, he tied the bow on her maid uniform for her while Kana, extremely It is fine. It is fine. Do not be so reserved. Now try calling me young master. Back in reality, she glared with furious anger and growled out each word. Just you wait. Once I ensure my sister's safety, I will definitely take your life in the dead of night. At the castle, Kanya hesitantly said to Frey, young master, we have arrived at the student dormitories. She then placed Frey onto the bed. He went along with it and lay down. Kanya followed up with an announcement, I will be living here with you starting today. Hearing this, Frey shot up from the bed in alarm. Kanya, what are you kidding me? She calmly confirmed, the Duke has ordered me to keep an eye on you. If I fail, I will be dismissed. Hearing this, the young man could only stare wide-eyed as the system prompted the player to consider the 3 scenarios that could lead to a game over. Kanya laid a mat down next to Frey's bed. The system then presented the options, 1 being expelled or unable to enroll at the academy for any reason, 2 the death of one of the 5 female hero characters, 3 the system's host perishing in any situation other than the final battle. Kanya calmly lay down on her mat, covered herself with a blanket, and went to sleep. Then she calmly turned to him and said, good night, young master. Frey, on the other hand, was gritting his teeth and clutching his head in turmoil. Finally, he sat on the bed looking out the window and sighing. So while at the academy, I will have to protect my own life, and the lives of all 5 heroines too. This regression is making things way too difficult. What a damn game. But what is the use in complaining now? The next morning, the sound of chirping birds woke everyone in the residence. Kanya was already long awake, standing by Frey's bed and reminding him, young master, if you do not get up, you will be late for school. But he just turned over and over on the bed and grumbled, I do not care, just let me sleep. Kanya did not press him any further, and immediately ran to open the door. Then I shall take my leave first. I hope you understand. Seeing her actions, Frey immediately sat up and shouted, Kanya, stop right there. Who do you think you are? Frey coughed violently. His brow furrowed as blood streamed from his mouth. It stained his white clothes. Damn it, I overdid it, draining my own life force yesterday. Kanya, with a look of reluctant concern, managed to ask a question. Are you all right? Frey, still clutching the bedsheet, answered her, I am fine. Do not worry about that. Besides, since when were you allowed to leave before me? You are like this inanimate pen, unable to move on its own. Without my control, understand? If you want to complain, then get the hell out of here and your sister will become my plaything. Startled by his outburst, Kanya trembled and sobbed as she replied to Frey, I am sorry. Young master, please spare my sister. He then moved his face close to hers, smirking as he asked, what are you crying about? She just kept sobbing, wiping her face with her hands. Frey continued to taunt her, that little girl is your precious, treasured little sister, isn't she? He then patted her on the shoulder as he walked past, not forgetting to add, then do not you dare forget your place. Understood. Kanya was still crying, terrified, as the system announced +10 pseudo-villain points for involving someone's family. That was a bit excessive. She then picked up the fountain pen he had thrown away, and a memory of her sister holding the pen surfaced. Please treasure this gift, just like you treasure this little sister of yours. Okay. Kanya almost broke down again, calling her sister's name. In despair, suddenly Kanya noticed the bloodstain on the bed and let out a hum. It was a smeared, bloody handprint. She then wondered if that guy Frey had caught some kind of disease like this before his regression. The scene shifts to the classroom where the teacher stands at the podium, seriously introducing herself to the students. I am Iset Unhambu and I will be in charge of Class A for the foreseeable future. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Then Kanya and Frey sneak into the room. Seeing this, the teacher looked annoyed. You two are late. 10 points will be deducted from each of you. Hearing that, Frey also frowned in anger. He glanced at Kanya and blamed her. Tich, this is all your fault for being so slow. Meanwhile, the girl behind them was trembling with anger. It was Arena. She glanced at him in astonishment and shouted, why are you still here? Frey completely froze. He glared at her, then immediately turned his head away and cursed bluntly, crazy wench. He then sat down and looked towards Arena with Kanya next to her. The teacher's voice rang out, if everyone is here, we will begin the class now. Meanwhile, Arena was anxiously biting her nails and scratching her head, muttering, how is he still alive? My magic was perfect? Could it be that he was in league with the Demon King from the very beginning? Suddenly, the sound of chalk tapping rang out along with the teacher's reminder, quiet down there. Fochi was glaring at Frey, radiating intense killing intent, while the young man looked weary and complained, good grief, it's only the first day and we already have to study. The teacher then began her lecture. Arena touched her chin in fear while he slumped over his desk in disgust, pouting. Finally, the class came to an end. The teacher closed her book and announced, "The first period is over. The next class will be a training session. Outdoors." Suddenly, someone tapped Frey's shoulder and called out, Young Master Frey." He turned to see Fochi stammering, "With a smile, I wish to offer you a blessing, so may I have a moment of your time in a secluded place? Please, it would be best if it's just the two of us." Frey looked at her doubtfully and asked, "For real?" Right after that, the system issued a red alert warning villainous intuition has detected a strong killing intent nearby. Frey stood up, looked at the notification window and thought to himself, "This girl definitely didn't come here with good intentions." Frey immediately, bluntly refused. "I decline." Fochi looked startled. "This blessing can't be bought with money, you know." Frey kept his eyes closed and waved his hand dismissively. "So what, I just don't need it." Seeing this, Fochi's eyes welled up with tears as she looked at him and stammered, Sorry, I'm so sorry. How terrible." She then stood there covering her face and sobbing. Seeing this, Frey sighed and thought to himself, "Being so naive is a pain. She's going to be used by the church and I'm no hero meant to save her." Later at the outdoor training arena, the instructor looked at the students and announced, "Everyone quiet down. The second class today will be a practical combat training session." Next teacher, Iset gripped the hilt of her sword, planted it in the ground and announced, "Each of you will duel me one by one." The clash of swords rang out. Below was the dueling stage and above the students watched. Iset swung her sword and the student on the other side was immediately disarmed. Iset looked bored. Utterly useless. Next. Then another male student was also quickly held with a blade to his neck. While he was fumbling to cast something, the teacher looked confused. "Is that a fireball? Why does it look no different than a firecracker? So pathetic." Next up above, Frey and Kanya watched, squinting their eyes in boredom. Frey thought, "This teacher is really a pain." The teacher's voice continued to ring out. Next, right after that, Frey glanced over at Kanya. "It's my turn." Of Kanya's. Then she immediately stepped into the arena to face Instructor Ayers, who asked, "Are you ready?" "Yes, I am, ma'am." The instructor quickly brandished her sword and charged forward, and seeing this, Kanya remained calm as she gathered energy in her palm and unleashed a spell. She also countered with her sword and they traded several blows while Frey sat on the sidelines with his arms crossed observing the fight. Kanya isn't usually this aggressive. Has she forgotten that she could suffer from mana exhaustion? "I have to waste 10 times the mana just to transfer life force from a distance like this," and down below they continued their relentless assault. Frey also commented, "That's more than enough." Next, a tempest of attacks swept towards Kanya, making her grimace. He also screamed at his thoughts, completely bewildered. How much longer does she intend to fight? Frey clutched his chest in pain, thinking, "That's enough, please stop. Just stop here, Kanya. How much longer do you intend to keep fighting?" Down below, Ayers was still enthusiastically brandishing her sword. Urging Kanya on, she said, "You're holding out longer than I thought. Let's see how long you can keep this up." Kanya also looked toward her instructor and announced, "I'll stop here. I was born with a source of mana that is unstable, and it could become uncontrollable if I try to fight any longer than this." Seeing this, Ayers also stepped back and replied to Kanya, "Is that why you move so cautiously? What a pity, I see in you all the makings to become a powerful mage." Frey sighed in relief. "Whew, I thought I was about to die for a second there." Ayers looked over at him and said, urgingly, "All right, who's next? Hurry up and get down here." Frey gave a forced smile. "At least I succeeded in helping Kanya conceal the existence of her dark magic." Next, he removed the skull artifact from inside his shirt. "Now I have to meticulously prepare for my own next plan. This is a golden opportunity to earn a massive amount of points from the system." Down in the arena. Arena was directly confronting Ayers, but before she could even activate Fireball, it exploded. The instructor looked completely fed up. "I don't even know what to say anymore. Someone take her to the infirmary." A female student ran over to Arena looking very worried. "Arena, are you okay?" But she was already unconscious on the ground. From the stands, Fochi stood up, raised his hand and asked, Next. It's my turn. But can I not go up?" The instructor rested her hands on her hips and asked, "What's the reason?" Fochi, looking extremely shy and awkwardly explained, "Well, I just feel that using my powers on an instructor isn't very appropriate." Seeing this, Ayers looked at him and advised him, "Listen carefully, that is not a welcome excuse." Fochi stammered, "Why, yes ma'am, I understand." The instructor glanced over the remaining students, "So the last person will be." Before she could finish her sentence, Frey had already shot to his feet to the amazement of the crowd. He strode down confidently with his sword over his shoulder and taunted, "Hey big sis, Enjoying playing the hero? Playing saint for those commoners must be fun, huh? Ears not to be outdone glared back at him and asked, "Then I suppose being a high and mighty young master like you is a lot of fun, huh? Come on down and let me help you adjust that twisted worldview of yours." Right after that, Frey charged forward without hesitation and their swords clashed against each other. Their faces were pressed close together, making the instructor blush as she gritted her teeth with a teach. Frey thought to himself the money spent buying this was absolutely worth it. Then the young man continued his taunts. "Don't be surprised by just this little bit of power. My regression has prepared me for more. The battle has only just begun." Ears was quickly overwhelmed, dodging his attack. Finally, his sword flashed with a brilliant light. Next, Frey's entire body grimaced as he swung his sword, while on the other side, Irik's body flashed as she raised her own sword ready to block the incoming blow. In the stands above, constant murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I can't believe it. He's actually overpowering." The professor herself. Meanwhile, Kana quietly observed him from below as the professor, startled, struggled to parry his attacks. As if realizing something under the sun, the sword fell from Ayet's hand in a moment of stunned disbelief. Frey paused as his collar began to glow. A shocked Fochi pointed down, exclaiming, "There's a dark aura emanating from that badge." The students turned to look at her. Seeing this, Ayet walked back toward her sword and asked, "Huh, is that really true?" Fochi, however, was already marching toward Frey with indignant anger. Frey remained calm, smiling back at them. "Who knows? Want to check?" Fochi quickly reached for the badge on his chest, but immediately it began to be scorched. The surroundings suddenly fell strangely silent. Above, the other students stared at him with curiosity, starting to whisper, "A duke's son involved with black magic." Someone else chimed in with a sneer, "That cursed artifact must be worth an entire house." A system notification appeared, plus 2,000 points for the debut of a fearless villain. Frey looked at the notification panels, appearing quite pleased. With his sword still slung over his back, he thought to himself, "Oh, I earned so much in one go. It seems causing a ruckus in the academy is the best and most efficient choice after all." Suddenly, a cold voice called out to him, "Frey, we need to have a private talk." Later in the professor's office, she began to question him. "How dare you bring a dark magic artifact into the academy?" In response, he calmly put his hands in his pockets, turned his face away and sighed. "Don't overreact. Who even cares about a little toy?" Iset pressed on. "Frey, what on earth happened to make you change so much? You weren't like this as a child, were you?" Frey's brow furrowed as he pursed, his lips giving her a dark look. Next, Ayer's information panel appeared before him. Her current emotions: anger, disappointment, worry, regret, and pity. Frey thought, just as I predicted, she's still worried about the boy who was supposed to be a hero. But after my regression, even so, I can't turn back now. He then scoffed, pointing a finger at the professor. "I haven't changed at all. This is what you call adapting to society. Only fools try to live a righteous life." After hearing this, Iser sighed helplessly and stood up. "All right, since this is your first offense, I'll let it go." Frey replied cheerfully. "That's a wise decision. That artifact was expensive, so I've already taken a huge financial loss in place of a punishment." Iser's eyes sharpened as she replied, "On one condition. You will take me to the place that sold you this. I can't just ignore a dangerous place that continues to sell these artifacts to students." Hearing this, he looked at her with a delighted smile and confirmed, "Oh, that sounds wonderful. Then it's a deal. I'll take you there tomorrow. There are a few things I want to buy too." Hearing that, she adjusted her glasses and reminded him, "Frey, we are not going shopping." Frey, full of excitement, started to leave. He raised a hand and smiled brightly. "Don't be so picky if there's nothing else. I'll see you tomorrow." Behind him, Iser could only hold her forehead in exasperation while Frey excitedly mumbled, "Perfect." Exchanging a magic tool shop for 2,000 system points is quite a bargain, Iser thought, confused. "Frey, why have you changed so much?" Returning to his room, he opened the door to find Kana inside, holding a small teddy bear and looking a bit startled. Seeing him, she habitually said, "Welcome back, young master." At this, he frowned and muttered, almost. But forgot someone else was in here." Frey then lay on the bed, crossed his legs, and looked at her curiously. "What are you holding?" At that, she replied, "This is a stuffed cat Katia gave me. Isn't it cute?" Frey blushed and buried his face into the pillow, scoffing, "Tisk, it looks ridiculous." But inwardly, he was melting from its cuteness. As sunset fell, Frey urged, "That's enough. Go to sleep now." Kana replied, "Yes, good night, sir." That moonlit night. And Frey sat up in bed and looked towards Kana, wondering, is she asleep yet? He then quickly moved towards her. I have to transfer tomorrow's life force to her before I can sleep. From behind, the bear stared intently, its eyes narrowing. Its jet black eyes, reflecting the image of the two, suddenly began to glow as the bear gained consciousness. Frey reached his hand out in front of Kana and asked, "Hey Kana, are you asleep yet?" On the other side, the bear carrying Kana's soul had flashed, looking at him with killing intent. She silently concluded, "The fact that this Frey guy coughed up blood is definitely suspicious. I've been carefully, observing his every move but still can't find any clues. But he's definitely up to something shady, especially for a supposed hero I saw after I fall sound asleep." She peeked, staring intently at Frey, thinking, "Let's see what this bastard is up to." Her pupils narrowed. Meanwhile, Frey rolled up his sleeves and reached for Kana's body, muttering, "Looks like she's really asleep. Well then, I should get started." Kana's body remained still and motionless. Frey lifted her shirt, startling her. Instantly, a panicked and flustered Kana watched her own body. What the hell is this pervert trying to do? Meanwhile, Frey was struggling, and gritting his teeth, his face pale, to heal her. Kana couldn't help but wonder suspiciously, could it be that the reason his health is, deteriorating is because he stays up all night doing this kind of stuff? At this thought, she grew even angrier, gritting her teeth and growling, "That damn bastard! Thanks to my regression, I'll definitely take care of him in this life." Her face was filled with outrage. She continued to think furiously, "Once I return to my body, I will torture you with the most brutal punishments before sending you to the next world, you son of a bitch." Frey, huh? But then she suddenly stopped, her gaze hardening as she stared at Frey's rigid body, letting out a confused, He's been holding his hand like that for a while now. What on earth is he trying to do? Frey's hand was still trembling as it transferred energy into Kana's body. Seeing this, she silently wondered, why does it look like he's being tormented by pain? Suddenly she panicked, and as if realizing something unbelievable, her eyes narrowed in discontent, thinking, "No way, how could a villain like him possibly stop at just something like this?" Right after she resolved firmly, "I just need to wait a little longer. He'll definitely show his true colors." Finally, Frey finished the treatment. He leaned back on the floor, looked up and sighed. "Phew! That should be enough." Her body remained motionless on the floor, while her soul behind it was flustered and sweating, thinking in utter confusion. "It's over, huh? Frey now." Kam got up from the floor and quickly turned away. He then walked over to the cat. It immediately sat perfectly still, sweating, thinking, "Have I been discovered?" Frey stood there silently, then smirked and reached out his hand. On her end, she panicked, screaming internally, "How can this be? Even if she's a saintess, she shouldn't be able to see through my dark magic." Immediately after, Frey lifted the teddy bear, laughing with pure delight. "Oh my gosh, this is so cute!" Kania had not seen this coming. He quickly snuggled his face against the bear's back, cheerfully noting, "This softness is so addictive." Meanwhile, she was completely frozen. Confused and getting goosebumps, she watched as an excited Frey lay on the bed with the Kania teddy bear. He held the bear up in front of him, then poked its belly. Feeling the tickle, Kania accidentally let out a small noise. Frey looked at it, let out a goofy laugh and said, "Huh." Right after that, Kania trembled, her voice catching as she squeaked, "Nee, nee." Frey smiled enthusiastically. "Oh, so it makes a noise every time I press its belly." As she heard this, Anna, she was terrified, goosebumps breaking out all over, but Frey kept pressing to confirm his suspicion. She couldn't stop squeaking, and Frey continued. "He did this again, looking incredibly amused. Maybe I should buy one of these for myself." The next morning, sunlight streamed in. Woken by the sunlight, Frey sat up and saw Kania writhing on the floor, even though it was early in the morning. "What's wrong?" Kania, kneeling on the floor and hugging herself tremulously, answered, "It's just, my stomach is a little, unsettled." Before she could finish, his face darkened. He pointed to the door and shouted, "Ugh, just go to the bathroom and take care of it." At hearing that, she turned and ran off, shouting indignantly, "Please just leave me alone." Then she awkwardly clutched her stomach as she ran for the door, while he couldn't help but shoot her a judgmental look. "Tisk, that's disgusting." Immediately after, the system announced plus 200 points for a misunderstanding. The young man looked baffled, thinking to himself, why did I get more points? Next, the system continuously sent notifications. New notification. You have accumulated enough villainy points to level up from newbie to amateur. The item shop has been unlocked. Hearing this, he looked toward the prompt excitedly and squinted, his eyes letting out an "oh." He then stroked his chin, realizing, the number of things I can buy has increased. I should get This one and that one and that one too. Right after the sound system chimed in with a new notification. Main quest, the attack on the Commoner Dormitory. Requirement, prevent the attack and capture the mastermind. Reward, accelerate the process of awakening the Postito hero's weapon. Penalty for failure, a slight decrease in life force and lifespan. Frey looked thrilled that the main quest had finally arrived. He then thought with determination, in that case I need to go to the auction and get my hands on that item. I promised my sister too, so the timing is perfect. He then quickly walked toward the door of the room. Just then, a knock came from outside accompanied by a familiar voice. Frey, are you in there? He glanced toward the sound. Then, Atko pointed and commanded, Kanya, get the door. Hearing him, she scurried over, flustered, acknowledging, yes, master. At the door was Isolette, who saw her teacher. Kanya bowed politely. Good morning, Professor. Seeing Kanya, a confused Isolette asked, Kanya, why are you here? Kanya calmly looked at her and replied, I am currently living in the same room as the young master to serve. Him! Upon hearing this, the professor was absolutely horrified, her eyes widening as she shrieked, You said what, Frey? Are you out of your mind? Sharing a room with another person? Frey raised a hand to his chin. She's as prudish as I recall from before my regression. I think you should try tasting, the forbidden fruit a little. If you don't, you'll die alone, so don't come complaining to me. Hearing this, Isolate went completely rigid, practically turning to stone. Beside him, Kania frantically waved her hands to explain, Professor, I swear our relationship is not like that at all. And so Frey calmly stood up and looked at the notification from the system plus 100 truth hertz points. Next, he quickly pushed his sister, whose worldview was shattering, out the door and reminded her, Seriously, sis, how long are you planning to stand there? We still have to get to the back alley. Behind them, Kania bowed respectfully. Young master, please be careful. The sky outside was a clear blue as the two walked down the street. Iset asked doubtfully, Frey, are you sure we're going the right way? Hearing this, Frey, relying on knowledge from his regression, glanced around and said, Just be quiet and stay close to me. The two of them, disguised in cloaks, silently entered a narrow alley. Iset walked on, looking around warily. Her face scrunched up as if she'd just stepped in something disgusting, and she clicked her tongue in annoyance. Meanwhile, Frey, walking behind, simply watched quietly. He observed her expression. Iset couldn't hold back any longer and cried out in frustration, What is this godforsaken place? Frey also glanced at the scenery. In around him, thinking to himself, You can't really blame her. Before their eyes were skeletal children lying listlessly on the street while nobles casually feasted and dallied with women. Frey knew that Iset was no stranger to corruption and injustice, and within the empire, it was just that this was her first time witnessing its sheer brutality firsthand. His eyes glanced over a noble Tanombi with a woman on each arm, and he continued to think, the only difference is that this time she's seeing the situation for what it truly is. Iset grew more furious the longer she looked. Losing all patience, she urged, Hurry and take me to that shop. Frey only glanced at her without a word, but immediately after, Iset's eyes blazed with the determination of a true hero. After we deal with that shop, I'm going to purify this entire district. Frey calmly pointed ahead, his voice even. We're here. In front of them was an old wooden door. Seeing it, Iset nodded and muttered, So this is the place. Without a moment's hesitation, she drew her sword and strode inside, her voice deepening as she, instructed, You just wait here. I'll handle this quickly. Watching her back, Frey let out a soft sigh and scratched his head. He thought to himself, She hasn't changed a bit. My objective from the system is to complete the main quest. It's best to avoid any unnecessary complications. But just at that moment, a pained scream echoed out, Help! A young girl was being viciously beaten, her hair yanked by a man. The thug in front of her smirked, his voice gloating, Don't put up a useless struggle. Immediately after, he reached out and seized another, the little girl, clamping his hand tightly over her mouth. His eyes gleamed with a covetous light. Goods this fine. The boss will certainly be pleased. The man beside him chimed in with a vulgar laugh. Frey clenched his fists, his body trembling with suppressed rage as he screamed internally, I can't just watch this anymore. His face darkened, his eyes flashing with a terrifying chill. Without a second's hesitation, Frey charged straight toward the traffickers. The group, still oblivious to Frey's presence, was gleefully dragging the poor girls, and toward a guarded house, laughing and talking smugly as they walked. Here we are, we've brought you to the place, little lady. Frey came to a halt, his sharp, cold eyes scanning the group. In front of the house, two burly guards stared at him, intently. One of them frowned. Seeing Frey in his unfamiliar cloak, they immediately became guarded. One of them sneered disdainfully, "This is no place for a kid to be playing." Frey simply chuckled and leisurely pulled out a pouch of gold coins. Everyone is a slave to money after all. The two guards' attitudes changed in an instant. They bowed obsequiously. "Please, right this way, come in." He smirked as he strode past, not forgetting to toss out a scathing remark, "Scram, you pathetic cowards." Inside, the atmosphere was hazy under flickering ethereal lights. The air was thick with the scent of liquor and luxury. A girl at the counter saw Frey and flashed a professional smile, her voice as sweet as honey. "Welcome, sir. I hope you have a wonderful time," she said, pulling out a book and flipping through its pages, filled with pictures of girls, her tone overly flattering. "Oh my, what a handsome guest we have. I wonder what your preferences might be." Frey glanced at the book and stated calmly, "I want to see the merchandise in person rather than just these pictures." The woman froze for a second but quickly put her smile back on young master. "You must be young and don't understand the rules, but unfortunately, we can't accommodate that request." Frey raised an eyebrow. Instead of replying, he simply pulled out another pouch of gold. This time her smile blossomed instantly, her voice turning soft as silk. "Right this way, sir." Frey followed slowly, his eyes sharp and cold. The deeper they went, the more suffocating the air became, and he scanned his surroundings warily. He thought to himself, "Just as I suspected from my regression, they built a secret cellar underground." Suddenly, Frey's eyes shot wide open. In complete shock, he stared at the stats before him, muttering in disbelief. "Good heavens, why is one of the Demon King's minions here?" The system window displayed her information. Succubus, Queen Strength 7, 0.5 Magic 7, 0.5 Intelligence and Spirit 8, 0.5. Special abilities Blessing of Charm, Scent of a Succubus trait, Money Grubber. Frey's gaze grew cold and suspicious as he sized up the woman, silently thinking, "This is bizarre, I need to look into this more." As for her, despite her annoyed expression, she still smirked smugly at Frey. She pointed to a room up ahead and announced, "We're here. Now you are free to browse the goods." They then proceeded to a detention area, and Frey frowned, asking what this was. The succubus queen gave a friendly smile and called out to the people inside, "All right, girls, put on a big smile. We have a customer." The girls inside the cages immediately began to laugh, but their smiles were distorted and crazed as tears streamed down their faces. Their bodies were covered in bruises from being brutally beaten. "Hello, hello!" Their eerie laughter mingled with choked sobs. The succubus queen turned to Frey, smiled, and asked, "Are you feeling thrilled yet, young master?" Frey observed the scene, a slight smirk playing on his lips. "Of course I am." Her eyes widened in excitement as she laughed, and Frey glanced at the people in the cages, feigning a thoughtful expression as he stroked his chin. He then said slowly, "It's just that I prefer them a bit younger." The succubus queen paused, giving him a confused look. Frey said nothing more, simply pulling out another pouch of gold and gently shaking it in front of her. "How about another pouch, what do you say?" he asked calmly. Her expression soured instantly, but her eyes gleamed brightly. She looked like she was about to protest, but then a huge grin split her face as she stared excitedly at the gold. "How could I possibly refuse such a generous offer?" she confirmed. Without a moment's hesitation, she led Frey onward to a large door. The smile on her face grew even brighter as she knocked rhythmically 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. A moment later, a door in the stone wall slowly swung open. She turned to him and began to introduce it excitedly. "This is a secret passageway," but before she could finish, the hero Frey unleashed a powerful kick. She let out a wretched scream as her body flew backward, smashing into the wall with her head lodging in the stone. Her eyes rolled into the back of her head and she was out cold. Frey pulled his leg back, shot her a cold look, and then quickly rushed into the secret doorway. His voice echoed coldly, "You just take a nap right there. I'll go have a look inside by myself." Then he dashed forward, his hurried footsteps stomping heavily on the stone floor, echoing through the silent space. But the moment he stepped through the doorway, the scene inside made him freeze, his eyes widening in shock at the sight of children imprisoned in an iron cage. Their small bodies trembled, eyes filled with terror. In front of them was a dark magic circle, drawn in blood, emitting a sinister crimson glow. Our hero, Frey, clenched his fists, muttering, "Damn bastards!" So this was their goal. His eyes filled with killing intent as he slowly confirmed his suspicions. They're planning to awaken the Demon King. Using this method, Frey crouched down, examining the magic circle. A formation drawn with the blood of children, and all these kids are being turned into sacrifices. From inside the cage, the children screamed incessantly, "Someone's here! Save us!" The succubus queen Kilbus stood in the doorway glaring at him. In a cold voice, she said, "So you've seen everything." And behind her stood a massive legion of soldiers. She gritted her teeth, pointed at Frey, and commanded, "I don't care who this damn brat is, I want him taken alive." Seeing this, Frey quickly donned his mask, thinking, "It'll be a real pain if, my face is revealed to the children during the fight." He then drew the sword from his hip, his voice gently consoling the children. "Hey kids, just wait a moment, okay?" In an instant, his body unleashed the powerful aura of a swordmaster, enveloping the entire room. Frey charged forward, his sharp blades slicing through the cloaked soldiers. They couldn't even react. In a flash, they were decapitated. The succubus queen, Kilbus, glared and shrieked in fury, "You! Who the hell are you?" Frey stood amidst a pool of blood, his sharp gaze fixed on her. As he slowly advanced, she stumbled backward in fear. "Stay back! Don't come any closer!" she stammered, trembling. She trembled so violently that she began to sob, pleading desperately, "Whatever you want, I can give it to you. I can provide information on the Demon King if you wish. Or how about I serve you every night? There's nothing better than a succubus." But before she could finish her sentence, Frey delivered a fatal blow. His eyes were frigid as the tip of his sword pierced through her body. She whispered, "But why?" "Those weren't bad offers," Frey replied coldly. "It's simple. I don't negotiate with scum. Who dared to harm children?" Frey glanced at the terrified kids in the cage. At his feet, the succubus queen Kilbus collapsed, blood dripping from his blade onto the cold floor. Immediately, they all ran to Frey, shouting in unison, "Thank you so much for saving us!" Frey, the reluctant hero, awkwardly scratched his head and thought to himself, it was no big deal. The children happily ran off, waving goodbye, and he waved back gently, reminding them to remember. "Don't wander off. You have to go straight home, okay? And use the money I gave you to buy something delicious to eat," the children replied in unison. "Yes, sir." Suddenly, the system chimed with a notification that the sudden quest was complete. Frey was a bit taken aback, and right after that, the system continued to display, "Please select your reward." As he read the system panel, he stroked his chin and thought, for a sudden quest, the reward is a little stingy, isn't it? Abruptly, a soft, small voice spoke up beside him. How did you know we were there?" At that very moment, an information panel about the little girl appeared. Name, G-Stats, Strength 5, Magic 5, Intelligence 5, Spirit 6, Speci. Ability Potential, Trait Purity. Frey looked toward the little girl and thought, this is the child I saw get captured. How is this reward so perfectly suited for her? He scanned the system window, continuing his thoughts, if her hidden potential. If this little girl is nurtured properly, she'll definitely make her mark on history. Frey smiled softly, his eyes filled with determination. "I'll give this reward to her." Right after he handed GL a ring. "I'm giving you this lucky ring." The little girl, happy and curious, accepted it with open hands. Holding the 4-leaf clover ring, she then asked, "Why are you giving this to me?" Seeing her question, he replied, You can consider it an investment in the future talent of the Empire." Her eyes widened with curiosity as she asked, May I know your name? I want to repay you someday." Seeing this, he righteously patted her head. "Don't worry about it. It's simply the duty a hero like me must fulfill. Just living a good life is repayment enough for me. And I can tell you have a talent for learning magic. You should give it a try, okay?" Hearing this, the little girl stammered, Magic?" Frey quickly placed the ring on her finger. She smiled, clasped her hands, and prayed, "Thank you so much, hero. I'll definitely study magic diligently and repay this kindness. Please wait for me." And Frey at that moment still didn't realize how this seemingly simple event would drastically alter the future he knew from his regression. Amidst the desolate ruins of the structure, Iset yelled, "Frey, where have you been wandering off to all this time?" Frey awkwardly made up an excuse. "I was just distracted by a few things, but it's time to head to the auction now. I was just buying some information at the guild." He turned away, feigning regret. Apparently, they're auctioning off a dark magic item. Iset was immediately captivated by his words. "What did you say?" She immediately grabbed Frey's shirt, urging him on. "Don't waste any more time here. Hurry and take me to the venue." Frey feigned ignorance. "But you need a ticket to get in." "What?" Iset gritted her teeth, glaring at him furiously. Frey broke out in a cold sweat and stammered, "Actually," he scratched his head, his voice trailing off, "there is another way." After he explained his plan, both of them, I entered the auction. Iset linked arms with him, trying to hide her face with a mask, but her cheeks were still faintly flushed. "Is this really the only way?" "I already told you. If you want to get inside without a ticket, you have to pretend to be my lover. Frey focused on the auction stage while Izette glanced at him anxiously. They successfully took their seats in the red chairs. Do we really have to link arms like this? Geez, don't be so stiff, he thought to himself. Even though there's a slight risk she might lose control, there's truly no one better to act as my bodyguard. Besides, this is just an ordinary item. I should be able to get it easily. Suddenly, Frey jumped, exclaiming, "What the?" Seeing his agitation, Izette placed her hand on the hilt of her sword and asked cautiously, "What is it? What's wrong?" Frey stared intently at the system window before him, muttering, "It's appeared." Izette frowned. "Where is it?" Before Frey's eyes, an information panel displayed Clanna Stat Strength, Intelligence B, Magic Spirit 4. Special abilities, Frail Unstable Mana, Self-Destructing Core. Beside him, a girl in the red hood suddenly appeared. Pardon the intrusion. Frey instantly recognized her cold sweat beading on his forehead. "Clanna, she's here too." Another system window popped up. Clanna Stat Strength E Intelligence 7 Magic, 7 Spirit 8.1, Quality Emperor. It didn't stop there. In front of him, another translucent system panel appeared for Floy. Stats, Strength 1. Intelligence, 2 Magic Spirit. Special ability Blessing of the Sun God. Frey clutched his head in utter despair, realizing he was completely surrounded by major figures from his regression. How could this possibly get any worse? Could you not? He secretly whispered to Iser. "Sis, please never call me by my real name here." He glanced over, his hand still clutching the shawl, thinking, who would have guessed 3 of the 5 fated heroines would appear here, competing for the same thing as me? With that, they could control everything. At that moment, the auction floor began to stir as the auctioneer loudly declared, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you an exceedingly special stone possessing a mysterious power that cannot be appraised." Frey knew from his regression that overthinking it now was useless. Trying to obtain the stone was the most pressing matter. The very first item brought out was exactly what Frey had targeted, a manipulation stone with the ability to control minds. It could even completely take over a person to fulfill a mission. This is a key item for my system quest, he thought. I have to get it no matter the cost. The auctioneer took the mic and announced gravely, "The starting bid is 1 gold. Frey smugly raised his hand high. Sorry, but I can't let anyone else have this. In this world, money is everything. Never underestimate the financial power of a top ducal family in the empire." And paddle number 15 was raised in the silent hall. The auctioneer pointed toward Frey and started the countdown. 15 gold going once, 15 gold going twice. Are there any higher bids? Just then, Clanna raised her. The stunned auctioneer continued, without a moment's hesitation, 20 gold going once. Fochi hastily jumped in, though even she seemed surprised by the amount she'd just offered. The shouts continued, pushing the atmosphere to a climax. Unbelievable! 10,000 gold going once. 10,000 gold going twice? Could this be the final price? While they were all fumbling, Floy was in a panic, on the verge of tears. "What do I do now? I wrote the wrong number by mistake." Frey sighed internally. Such a clumsy girl. He continued the bidding. 11,000 gold, but immediately after a higher bid was made, surprising him. 12,000 gold. What? He glanced at a wealthy man beside him who was also captivated by the stone. The man adjusted his monocle and laughed. 20,000 gold! A flash of anger hit Frey as he forcefully raised the bid. 22,000 gold. But the old man didn't back down. The price of the stone just kept climbing. 30,000 gold. And so the two of them continued their bidding war until the auctioneer was out of breath. 40,000 gold. 50,000 gold. 55,000 gold. Anyone with a higher bid? The gavel struck the block. 55,000 gold for the third and final time sold. Frey smirked in victory, deliberately provoking the losing old man. It's a bit steep, but I can still manage. Just then, a surge of purple magic suddenly erupted. Frey distinctly felt the unusual flow of energy and whipped his head toward Clanna, his jaw dropping in shock as the magic sphere in Clanna's hand grew larger. Frey leaped to his feet, swinging his arm to cast dark magic as a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. This hero never intended to bid from the start. My regression should have warned me she only came to steal the stone. Darkness erupted, enveloping the entire auction hall. A staff member urgently shouted, "Everyone please remain calm, we will resolve the situation immediately." While covering his nose, Frey reached out to grab the stone. Damn it, how did things turn out this way? Whatever. I'll think about it later. I need to prioritize seizing the stone. At that moment, a flaming foot suddenly swung at him, and Frey was kicked, flying straight into the auction house staircase. A cold voice rang out, You never should have appeared here. Who on earth are you? You'd best be honest before it's too late. He smirked, pointing down toward Klana's feet. Klana looked momentarily bewildered. Frey said in a low voice, "Just look down." Astonished, Klana glanced down at her own smooth legs. Klana looked momentarily bewildered. Frey said in a low voice, "Just look down." Astonished, Klana glanced down at her own smooth legs. My body was exposed and my dress was more than half burned away. Her face flushed red as she quickly crouched down in shame. Despite her fear, she still stood strong to protect her comrades. You scoundrel! How shameless! This is unacceptable behavior. You must be a minion of the Demon King. She squeezed her eyes shut, raising her holy cross high in prayer. Oh Lord, please grant me the strength to destroy this perverted demon. Frey could only protest silently. I'm not a demon, nor am I the one who, burned your clothes. A terrifying holy light descended with a whoosh, exploding just as Klana prayed. A massive wall of light crashed down, creating a fierce gust of wind. Dust billowed up while Klana still tightly gripped the gleaming cross in her hand. But upon closer inspection, she was horrified to realize Frey was still standing completely unharmed. That was definitely a direct hit. Frey was also puzzled, but simply thought to himself, what's the point of her using exorcism magic on me? This time Fochi and Klana combined their strength, pushing their magic to a higher level. This is surely a trial. From the Lord I will accept it with all my heart. If you dare to look down on me, I will definitely destroy you. But before the two could act, a figure flashed past. The old man from before suddenly appeared, casting a control spell on them. Both tried to resist, but it was useless. Fochi was knocked completely unconscious, while Klana was so exhausted that even as she reached out, her body had no strength left. The old man slowly removed his mask. I didn't expect to see you here, Frey, on Starlight. Amidst the chaotic atmosphere, he smirked. They were too noisy, so I had to silence them. His name was Ekaros. A system window displayed his stats: Strength 2, Intelligence 7, Magic 8.5, Spirit 8.6. Special abilities: Shapeshifting, Mind Control. Trait: Imposter. Frey was stunned. A huge question flashed through his mind. Archdemon Yaros. What is he doing here? This was a face he knew well from before his regression. Frey quickly knelt down, his voice. What brings you here? Ekaros answered calmly. I came to retrieve the manipulation stone. Frey was startled, stammering, The manipulation stone. I had no idea it was such a precious item. Ekaros explained nonchalantly, it is something that can increase my power. Frey glanced at the battlefield where Air and Kanya were still fighting fiercely. A thought flashed. Is he the previous owners of this stone? Ekaros continued, if I have it, even the Demon King will no longer be able to look down on me. Frey quickly asked, I understand, but what about those two? Yaros sighed. I have taken control of the mind of the sword-wielding woman. She was trying to attack me. The old man stroked his white beard, a sinister smile spreading across his face. I greatly look forward to the level of power I will possess after using the stone. Frey reacted instantly. He gripped the sword at his hip, his gaze sharp. Does that mean you are very weak right now? In the blink of an eye, he swung his sword. A single slash ended it all. Ekaros' eyes widened before he collapsed. Frey snorted coldly. I thought you were still the archdemon from my past life. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Aset having lost control continued her attack on Kanya. Kanya trembled, cowering in fear. Frey frantically rushed forward, but unfortunately his badge fell from his pocket. Kanya squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the sword to strike, but instead of feeling the cold steel blade, a strong gust of wind swept over her head. When she opened her eyes, the scene before her left her speechless. Blood splattered onto Iset's hair. Iset had slashed Frey across the back. Frey coughed up a mouthful of blood, his vision blurring from the pain. He staggered and then collapsed, embracing Kanya tightly. Kanya stared in terror at the bleeding wound on Frey's back. She clutched him in her arms, screaming in panic. This was the sacrifice of a true hero. Are you all right? Frey gritted his teeth, enduring the pain as he reached for a nearby sword with what little strength he had left, grasping the hilt tightly. Kanya looked toward Iser in a panic, but Frey, despite the bone-deep pain, still managed to pat her shoulder to reassure her. Stunned, she stammered, Who are you? Why did you save me? Frey didn't reply, his eyes shifting to the sharp-eyed Iser nearby. He worried silently, Damn it. Even though I dealt with Iser, she's still under hypnosis. He tried to summon what little mana he had, left wiping the blood from his lips. Can I really defeat her in this state? Iser, with her lifeless eyes, once again charged forward. With a determined roar, the hero Frey rushed into the fray. With a single decisive strike, he defeated Iser, knocking the sword from her hand. The puppet strings controlling her also snapped. Iser's eyes flew wide, and she screamed just before her eyes began to return to their normal color. She collapsed completely unconscious. Watching the dark magic fade away, Frey exhaled sharply, in exhaustion. That should be enough to lift the hypnosis. He glanced toward the door, knowing he couldn't stay any longer. Just as he was about to leave, Kania shot to her feet. Wait, who in the world are you? But her question fell on empty air. Frey had already vanished into the crowd, running headlong. As he ran, he told himself, I can't collapse here. If I go down now, everything I've worked for since my regression will be for nothing. I have to hold on until I make it back to the academy dorms. The girls, just coming to their senses, were confused about what had happened. What was that? It feels like I just had a very long dream. As she got up before she could even take a step, Klana gasped in horror as she stepped into a pool of blood. What the heck is this? While the others were still disoriented, Kania remained fixated on the identity of her rescuer. Turning to look at Klana, Kania asked quizzically, Princess, why are you… Klana paused, her expression turning thoughtful and probing. Your presence here means you've recovered your memories from your past life. Correct? This regression brought them back for you too. Just answer this one question for me. Are you an enemy or an ally of Frey? Kania replied without hesitation. An enemy, Klana smirked. How about forming an alliance to deal with Frey? No, I want to establish an alliance where we can discuss in greater detail how to handle that jerk Fochi. Are you even using that brain of yours correctly? Fochi's face went pale, her expression stunned. Klana immediately shouted, if this time you let that church faction push you around again, aren't you just doing exactly what Frey wants? Even though Kania is a dark sorceress, don't be so hostile towards her, got it? Kania happened to look down at the ground and spotted something. Night fell blanketing Frey's castle. He threw himself onto the bed and sighed wearily. What a hell of a day. Frey burned the mask he had worn earlier, eliminating all traces. While bandaging his wound, he muttered, if that bastard had been a little stronger, I would be dead for sure. He hurriedly put on his shirt, but before he could finish getting dressed, the door to his room suddenly knocked. A familiar voice called out, I'm back, young master. Frey was startled for a moment. Why is she back so quickly? Before he could compose himself, Kanya pushed the door open and walked in. Her scrutinizing gaze made Frey instinctively step back. Young master, today. Where did you go? Frey tried to remain calm and answered nonchalantly, you already know, don't you? I went shopping with my sister. He gently pushed Kanya away, his voice curt. I'm tired. Don't ask anymore. Turn off the lights and go to sleep. Just as Frey pulled the blanket up, preparing to sleep, the next words from Kanya stunned him. It's strange. Today I came across someone who looked very much like you, young master, in the alley. She continued her story, her voice calm, but every word was like a blade stabbing straight into Frey. That person wore a mask and carried a sword identical to yours. Frey gripped the blanket tightly. But so what if I just deny it? This world isn't lacking in identical swords. Kanya was silent for a few seconds, then slowly took out an object. Oh right, young master. Today I also happened to pick up a star-shaped badge. It looks very familiar. Frey flinched reflexively, jumping up and grabbing for the badge. Where, be careful with it. The moment he said that, he knew he had fallen into her trap. Kanya narrowed her eyes. Her voice was light but carried a terrifying pressure. How strange. I never said I picked it up at the auction house. Her gaze pierced straight through Frey, and every word she spoke was like a shackle binding him. You accidentally dropped this when you fled, didn't you? Frey clenched the badge in his hand, but it trembled slightly. In his turmoil, he threw it away and growled, what the hell are you trying to say? He pulled the blanket over his head, trying to escape Kanya's gaze, but even hidden under the covers, he could still feel her breath right beside him. Damn it, she's certain now. What do I do? At that moment, a blinding light assaulted Frey's eyes. He squinted, but before he could react, Kanya climbed right onto the bed and pulled his shirt open. Hey, what the hell are you doing? Kanya stared intently at the fresh wound on his body. She spoke slowly, but her voice was sharp. It's useless for you to deny it. She let go of his shirt, concluding in a firm tone, the sword, the badge, this wound. All of it is more than enough to prove you are the masked man. Frey was speechless, his mind reeling as he tried to find a way out, but the system gave him no chance. Penalty initiated. Suffocating the fate of the false villain. Vitality and lifespan drastically reduced. Number of applications. 1. A sudden pain struck, causing Frey to writhe on the bed and spit blood. young master, what's wrong with you?" Kenya rushed over in a panic, but Frey could only clutch the bedsheets, his body trembling violently. "Everything that happened today is beyond my control." After his regression, he thought he could handle anything, but this pain was too intense. Frey's arm went limp. "Young Master," Kanya shook him hard, but Frey was completely motionless. Kanya clenched the cloth in her hand, fighting an internal battle. Should I just leave him be? She looked at Frey, the boy who acted like a hero to save her, but was also the one she suspected. If I just leave him like this, he will surely die. I can't. After everything, I can't just let him die like this. The reason he saved me. Kanya considered her options. It's not too late to get the truth after he explains himself. With that thought, she raised her hand and began to chant a spell. Using dark magic, Kanya poured all her power into him, thinking to herself, now I will enter Frey's subconscious. He is already unconscious, which is even better. This way I might find out what is really happening inside him. Now inside Frey's subconscious, she slowly opened her eyes to a crystal clear sky and a vast expanse of still water. The surface was perfectly calm without a speck of dust. She thought in astonishment, how can his subconscious be so pure? The minds of sinners and villains are supposed to be plunged into the deepest darkness. Just then a voice called out from below. A tiny timid Frey looked up and greeted Kanya. Seeing him, she suddenly amplified her magical power and shouted, "So you have finally appeared, ruler of this subconscious space." Kanya's dark magic quickly bound the young boy's hands and feet. She watched him warily, thinking, I cannot let my guard down just because he looks like a child. He has absolute control in this space. Kanya then declared loudly, "This is the magic of the vow. Swear that you will answer my questions truthfully." Hearing this, the little boy replied, "I swear, please let me go." The chains wrapped around him immediately vanished. Kanya continued, "First question, why did Frey help me?" She stared intently at the young Frey, not daring to look away. The boy answered, "Because you are precious to Frey." Kanya bit her lip in resentment, seemingly dissatisfied with the answer. "Precious? Do you have any idea what he has done to me?" Young Frey quickly explained, but there was a good reason for that. Besides, he is sacrificing his own life force to save you right now. Hearing this, Kanya was stunned into silence. Young Frey sighed, "As I thought words alone are not enough to convey the truth. I will show you." As soon as the boy finished speaking, a gentle light enveloped Kanya. Young Frey explained that, this is Frey's true nature. At that moment, a flood of his memories poured into her mind, and the truth about everything was finally revealed. Kanya realized with anguish, clutching her head, so it was all a misunderstanding. All those despicable actions. All that this hero Frey committed were to save the world, and I am the reason he is in this state. And even though I hated him, he was still willing to give up his life force for me. The truth of this reality was almost too much to bear. As Kanya felt helpless and heartbroken, she could not stop the tears from streaming down her face as she hunched over the clear waters of Frey's soul. Just then, young Frey approached her. He comforted her, "Please do not blame yourself." The little boy's attempt to console her made Kanya's heart ache. Young Frey hugged her just as the space began to fracture. Kanya ended her spell, returning to reality with 2 streaks of tears rolling down her cheeks. On a peaceful evening, gentle moonlight illuminated the magnificent castle. Frey was breathing heavily, his body covered in sweat. He weakly sat up and asked, "Where is this?" Kanya, who was beside him, rushed over, calling young master. Frey immediately noticed the warmth and respect in Kanya's voice. He awkwardly turned his face away. "You have figured out my identity, have not you? I know it is not enough to make up for everything, but I plan to tell you the full story. There is no point in hiding it anymore." Kanya nodded. "Please tell me." He began to explain. "After my regression, I was given a mission to be the hero who saves the world, and for that I am bound by a cruel system. This system makes me grow stronger whenever I commit an evil act, and whenever my good deeds are revealed, I will lose a portion of my lifespan." Kanya then asked, "Is that why you treated me that way?" He hesitantly nodded. "I took advantage of you, using her for his mission." Frey looked at her seriously. "Kanya, please never forgive anything I have done regardless of the reason. My actions cannot be justified." Kanya immediately replied, "But aren't you in a unavoidable situation, and you even transfer life force to me every night?" Hearing this, Frey couldn't help but shout out. "You knew," Kanya replied. "I kept wondering what you were doing, but now I know." Hearing that, he scratched his cheek and said, "I guess it was bound to be revealed sooner or later." Frey looked up at her with concern and asked curiously, "So what do you plan to do from now on?" Kanya blushed slightly and said seriously, "I will continue to serve you as before until I can repay my debt to you." He sighed. I figured you'd say that. In that case, please take care of me as you always have. Some time passed, and a cat was happily licking its paw. As it relaxed, a voice spoke up. Your Highness. Kanya was holding the cat on her lap. You're asking why we're meeting at a cat cafe, Glana? She then smiled. Because no one can spy on us here. Hearing that, she sighed. Is that so? She then continued, since I couldn't obtain the Dominator Stone, I need to find one of Frey's other weaknesses to stop him from acting. Klana snorted. But I want to tear him to shreds right now, so. Fochi, sitting beside her, chimed in enthusiastically. Then let's go shred him right now, Klana said awkwardly. Fochi, even if he dies, we still have to live on. We need to leave as few traces as possible. Kanya thought to herself, just by spying on them like this, I'm at least being somewhat useful to the young master. Kanya then fell into deep thought. With this method of spying, I really can't do much for him. In the end, I can't shoulder those burdens for him. All I can do for him are the smallest things. Let's start with the little things first. I should prepare a proper meal for him so the young master can smile even if just for a brief moment. Just then at Frey's estate, Kanya stood beside him and asked worriedly, Is the food to your liking? Frey chuckled. Of course, it's delicious. I've been through so much misery just to be unable to say such simple words. After breakfast, it was time to begin today's life force transfer. Hearing him say that, Kanya grew even more anxious. But young master, if you do that, Frey then, shook his head. It's fine. I can't let you die because of me. She was silent for a long moment, surprised to hear that. Finally, Kanya nodded. I understand. Please try not to push yourself too much. She then lay down on the couch and Kanya lifted her shirt. At the same time, Frey asked softly, Shall I begin? He then transferred his life force into her body. Frey fully focused as his face slightly contorted and sweat poured down like rain. In the end, the pain caused him to cough up blood. Kanya slightly opened her eyes thinking, I expected this. But the penalty from the Shuabor system is truly taking a heavy toll on his body. At that moment, the stellar magic was blocked by the dark magic inside her, causing Kanya to cry out in pain. Frey looked at her with worry and asked, What's wrong? Seeing this, she quickly reassured him, It's just my stomach. Seeing her reaction, he realized something. And said softly, I'm sorry. Kanya, confused, asked, Young Master Frey then explained, It seems the stellar mana and the dark magic have mixed together inside. Hearing this, she worriedly shook her head. No, if you try to pull it out, your body will. Frey didn't listen, trying to use his magic to extract it. It'll be fine. Just endure it for a little longer. Frey felt exhausted, panting heavily. Kanya at this moment, Sepur anxiously shouted, Young master, please stop right now. I'm fine. Please don't. Finally, Frey finished. He let out a heavy breath. That was quicker than I thought. Kanya frowned as she warned him about his injury. Your left hand. Hearing that he noticed his arm, which had been corrupted by dark magic, Frey forced a smile. It hurts a little, but it's nothing. Besides, I'm right-handed, so it's not a big deal. Kanya said, flustered, but erasing it is nearly impossible. He just smiled and replied, It's not the end of the world. When this regression is all over, it will probably go back to normal. Hearing that, and she didn't know what to say and could only frown in frustration, Frey spoke again. It's almost time for class, isn't it? Let's get going. She immediately nodded. Yes, young master. Later at the academy, Isolde was announcing to the class, the midterm exam will be held in the form of, one-on-one duels. Frey, sitting in class, thought to himself, even though my body is in a wretched state, the goals for this hero are still far from complete. And all of my initial goals have been achieved. I've worked hard to farm points from the system, harvesting valuable skills and items. Now I can focus on the main quest. Just then, the point status window of the system appeared, announcing an accumulation of 3,560 points, with 630 points still needed. The skill shop also allowed him to view his skills. Right then, a new quest notification from the system popped up, demanding he win the match against Irina Filius. He nodded to himself, so the first mission is with Irene. If my memories from before my regression are correct, the noble who loses to her at midterm will hold a grudge. Because of that, they attacked the commoner's dormitory. However, the villain in this scenario changes depending on my choices. It all depends on whether I win or lose, or even run from the fight with Irina. The system window appeared, describing the mission Frey needed to complete. He then realized there was no penalty for failure. I can improvise, but I always follow the procedure and choose to become the villain, he thought. It's a strange path for a would-be hero, but it's better to take the active role than rush headfirst into an uncertain future. Iser then spoke up. Those who are lazy will fail immediately, so ensure you are prepared to the best of your ability. Please pair up and report back within 1 hour. Begin, Frey thought again. Fighting Irene is easy enough, but there's already a problem. The tricky part is that in her current state she has no way of winning against me. At that moment, the sounds of fighting and screaming echoed from outside. Please stop. This has nothing to do with you, they retorted. Nothing to do with us. It's your fault Lord Frey lost his interest. Ariane and Irina began to cry, but the people in the banquet hall were talking normally with Irina. They replied mockingly, that's because they're all idiots. Just then Frey arrived with a smile and said loudly, how clever of you doing all this without my command. Isabel, who had been observing from the side, excitedly greeted him. If it isn't Lord Frey, what brings you to this filthy place? He replied, well, I was just thinking about the girl who ran away. She laughed in reply, is that so? Their punishment will be over soon, so please just wait a moment. Frey glared at Ariane and Irina and asked coldly, why did you run away? Ariane cried out, how could we possibly agree to that request to be your companions for the night? Hearing this, he pretended to think, I see, so that means if the terms are reasonable, it would be acceptable, right? How about this then? Whoever loses the test will have to obey the winner's command. That's fair, isn't it? They shouted that they couldn't just believe empty words. He shook his head and said, I'm asking Irina, or will you fight in her place? Fight for her. Irina then shouted, all I have to do is fight you, right? Just you wait and see, Frey said happily, so you'll do it. Do that right. If you win, I'll give you 1,000 gold, but in return if you lose, you'll become my slave. All right, let's make a death vow. Because commoners like you break promises as easily as cracking an egg. She became furious. What did you just say? Ariane said worriedly. Don't do it, Irina. She then softened her voice to reassure him. It's okay. Irina took the necklace and made the vow with him. I just need to grind him into dust. Frey saw this and let out a treacherous smile. After that, the two made the death vow a magical system, binding them as two skulls began to lock tightly together. The heart of him was pierced by the sword on one skull, while the other pierced Irina's heart. Their hearts were now connected by the vow, bound by a blood chain. At this moment, Frey smirks deviously. You know what the consequences are for breaking an oath, don't you? It's better, that you find a nice and cozy coffin while you still can. Isabel, standing behind him, is filled with admiration, thinking, even though he just risked his life, he remains so nonchalant. He truly is a special kind of hero. At that moment, Frey turned around and said, I almost forgot. From now on, don't you dare touch them. The woman immediately replied, we will leave. Everything to your discretion, sir. Frey leaves, but not without a final reminder. Keep your word. I have no interest in touching someone else's leftovers from anyone else. He thinks to himself, perfect. I've eliminated those annoying pests and managed to get paired with Irina. The only problem, is that I have to lose to her even though she's weakened from mana exhaustion. With my current stats from the system, losing intentionally isn't going to be easy at all. At that moment, the system window appears announcing he has enough villainy points to open the expanded skill shop. Frey is delighted, thinking these new items in the shop will be useful. He notices a new skill, mana transfer, and thinks if she doesn't have enough mana, I can just give her some of mine. In a deserted hallway, it appears Frey is purchasing the item he just decided on. Mana transfer. With this, Frey will no longer have any issues completing his mission. After purchasing the first item of the day, he hesitates, wondering if he should buy something else with his remaining points. After deliberating for a long time, Frey decides to select the lie skill. After purchasing and acquiring it, he immediately tests his voice, I am a woman. Hearing it makes him cringe intensely. It's not a minor cringe. A wave of awkwardness washes over him. To make it worse, the words, a woman, keep echoing. He tries to compose on himself and readjust his voice to something more appropriate. No, that was a bit over the top. Unbeknownst to him, Fochi has been standing behind him and heard everything. She can't believe what she just heard Frey say. Startled, Fochi asks him again to confirm whether that statement was true. She seems unable to process this earth-shattering secret. Seeing his lack of reaction, Fochi immediately takes advantage of the situation to threaten Frey. He hesitates, wondering, should I chase after her and explain But after thinking it over, Frey calms himself down. Whatever, it's better to just let her be. 3 days later at the school's training grounds, Dick, there seems to be a voice coming from the bushes. Just as Frey pushes aside the leaves, a voice shouts, Irina and Aryan are there. She is panting from casting a spell, but the result wasn't what she had hoped for. Luckily, the other girl runs over to support her just in time. Worried for her, but Irina is defiant. She asserts, I feel like if I just try a little harder, if I can just unleash one attack, I'll have a chance to win. Although they are opponents, for some reason he enjoys the sight of the future hero putting in so much effort to defeat him. A fiery power slowly manifests in Irina's palm, that power gradually growing larger. Beside her is, the admiration of Aryan. Witnessing that moment, instead of jealousy, her eyes are filled with awe and admiration. As expected of a great archmage, she thinks. But after a moment, Irina's body becomes exhausted. Fortunately, Aryan catches her in time, knowing that if this continues, it will be bad. Aryan doesn't hesitate to offer her support. She predicts that Frey will unleash another technique and they can't win without playing their trump card. Appreciative of their commendable efforts, he can't help but applaud, joyfully congratulating Aryan. But she doesn't want to be seen as lesser, so she is determined to surpass them or him. Regardless of anything, Irina remains determined. To be more precise, she is stubborn, a trait of the future hero that his regression allowed him to remember, but Frey, on the contrary, wanted Ariane to help her, to the point he was begging in his mind, please just ask for her help. But then, out of nowhere, a pigeon flew over and delivered him a letter. Looking closely at the pigeon perched on his hand, he saw a letter tied to its left leg. Opening the letter, Frey was a bit shocked by the terribly poor spelling, but as he read the next part, it made him freeze. He read, stuttering, if you don't follow my orders, I will. The words appeared sentence by sentence, as if it were a threatening letter, and the writer was none other than Foshi. Knowing who sent the threatening letter made Frey sigh. The scene changes to a church where a flock of birds takes flight. He entered the church. The letter had directed him to, it seemed. Fochi had been waiting for him for a long time. Frey approached, exhausted and out of breath from having to struggle to open the door inside the magnificent church. Splendid in white, a girl was waiting for him with a mysterious box beside her. Fochi, as if sensing his arrival, turned around and looked at him, her voice gentle. You've arrived? She bent down to take an item from that mysterious box, a bit sulky because Frey had always deceived her. He, on the other hand, was bewildered, not knowing what secret Fochi was talking about. If she knew about his regression, he would surely cough up blood and pass out on the spot. Without waiting long, Fochi said in a firm voice, pressing her advantage, but it ends here. He thought it was a dangerous secret, but unexpectedly she said without hesitation, I am sure that the rumor of you being a woman will be a shock. He was both confused by the ridiculous secret and the meaning of the maid uniform. She was delighted that she knew the secret, and not only that, she had even thoughtfully prepared a maid outfit for him. Frey was seemingly speechless at Foshi's words, and at this point he could only sigh. He couldn't believe this foolish girl actually believed that. As for her, she was surprised after hearing him. Isn't that your biggest secret? Of yours? After speaking, Frey acted indifferently, letting Fochi do whatever she wanted. He started to show his annoyance and brushed her hand away. At this, Fochi clenched her fists, her whole body trembling in a fit of rage. She suddenly ran up and hugged him tightly, conveniently verifying Frey's gender. After the hug, Fochi's face darkened, bewildered by Frey's body. She became a little suspicious about his body's structure. Maybe that part hadn't developed yet, so she couldn't be certain. Fochi moved on to check another spot, which frightened Frey because of her craziness. She was bewildered. Why can't we touch each other if we're both women? All of a sudden, she screamed, and her face, which she was holding, suddenly blushed. She didn't know what to do. But Fochi still clung to her conviction that maybe everyone has a different development, so this was normal. She held her face, having an internal struggle. This hero was truly confusing. Afterwards, all the words from she started spouting nonsense. Fochi, covering her face, began to lose control of her emotions, while Frey, still annoyed, turned to leave. He left her to do as she pleased, and sure enough, she couldn't restrain the dark thoughts that emerged as Fochi lunged forward to grab Frey. Hearing a few words, he turned around to ask what she was muttering, but before he could even react, he was immediately attacked. Fochi grabbed him by the throat. She used her magic to both push and squeeze his neck, then straddled Frey as her whole body trembled with a chilling reminder. She warned that Klana intended to discover his weakness, and she squeezed Frey's neck even tighter as his face grew increasingly pale. Frey's face turned ghastly white as he foamed at the mouth, and seeing him unconscious with no ability to resist, Fochi finally began to let go. She started to feel guilty for what she had done by following Frey, and at that moment the jewel on his shirt began to glow. Acting on a sudden impulse, she raised her hand to end her own life, her fingers pressing against her neck as she prepared for the end. As a red liquid trickled, she uttered her last words of repentance, and the in-system window instantly appeared, activating a feature. A warning flashed, emergency protection skill activated. Fortunately, Frey immediately snapped awake and shot up to stop Fochi from doing something foolish. Seeing that he hadn't died, she wondered how he had come back to life, a feat reminiscent of a regression. Fochi, still not understanding what was happening, muttered, "I'm not sure, what's going on, but I'm certain this time." Frey, remaining silent, immediately pressed a stone and seized the upper hand. He went on the offensive, threatening her back and leaving Fochi powerless to resist. Seething with killing intent, he snarled, "Don't you think that I came here empty-handed while you were spouting those threats?" He advanced on Fochi step by step, menacing the saintess. For someone like her, the third princess, to be scheming against Frey, the son of a duke, was unthinkable. This caused Fochi to begin to panic. He fell silent for a moment before a new idea struck him. He shifted his threat. If this were to become a rumor, I wonder what would happen. Things could get very bad for a certain saintess, don't you think? That evening, a timid voice broke the silence. Fochi, holding a broom with a blushing face and teary eyes, meekly asked, Is this good enough?" Frey replied with a deadpan expression, "Start over from the beginning." She flinched in shock, as this was already the 5th time he held up in front of Fochi the stone that had recorded her earlier words. Fochi's demeanor instantly changed. Though resentful, she swept diligently, but since the floor was as already spotless, or perhaps because she was cleaning too vigorously, it was squeaky clean and her foot slipped slightly. As expected, Fochi lost her balance and tumbled to the floor. She resentfully wiped a tear away. Seeing her looking so pitiful, Frey asked if she wanted to do a different job. A not-so-virtuous idea crossed his mind, a wicked smirk spreading across his face. He made a suggestion, such as serving me overnight. Contrary to his expectations, Fochi flatly rejected the offer. The moment she finished speaking, a sharp slap landed squarely across her cheek. After hitting her, he sighed as if still unsatisfied. Frey returned to his spot but continued his threats. "You were the one who wanted me to obey you and not spread the rumor." His voice rose, laced with killing intent. "If you don't want a taste of hell, you'd better follow my orders." Fochi couldn't believe it. The man before her was no longer the Frey she once knew. The image she had of him as a potential hero, Ami, had now completely shattered. Frey looked openly irritated as he recalled a memory from the past, an image of a young girl holding a vial of medicine, her face filled with worry. Fochi snapped back to her hateful state and scoffed, "I take back what I thought. Now you're nothing more than scum." "Nothing but scum," she repeated. She turned her back to resume her work, leaving Frey speechless. It turned out he wasn't looking at her with any sense of attachment. He was merely gauging her current mental state. Everything he did for a reason. It was because after his regression, he refused to repeat the tragic past. That's precisely why he was forced to act this way. As night fell and everyone had likely gone to sleep. Leaving a tranquil silence, Frey dragged his weary body back to his room where Kania saw him. She immediately began to chide him for being so late. Noticing he was tipsy, she guessed he had been drinking. He just gave a sluggish, dismissive reply. Kania had noticed that he'd been going out drinking ever since his nightmares began. But for him, the alcohol barely had an effect because he had endured far worse in his past life before the regression. Frey quickly changed the subject. "Hurry and lie down, let me transfer some vitality." The ritual seemed familiar enough that Kania didn't hesitate for a moment, beginning to unbutton her blouse. But today was different. Frey awkwardly averted his gaze, having forgotten to tell her, "I don't necessarily have to transfer the energy through your abdomen." It seems Kania misunderstood, or perhaps she understood the implication all too well, causing Frey to become embarrassed too. Because in a life before this regression, he too had struggled, not knowing where to look. Another one of Kania's ideas surfaced, causing her to freeze. For a few seconds, Kania's face turned beet red, and she stammered in agreement, after which they both turned away to hide their blushing faces. After a few minutes, they both calmed down, and he stammered as he began to cast the life force transfer magic. Although Kania was still shy, she remained obediently silent for Frey, but unable to stand the tension. He broke the awkward silence again. This startled her. Frey hesitated before asking directly, "You entered my subconscious, didn't you?" The image of the stuffed cat was on the table. It was facing them. Kanya, unable to deny it any longer, admitted that she had indeed entered his subconscious. She had done it while he was unconscious. He breathed a sigh of relief, secretly glad she always went above and beyond to help him, but Frey then reminded Kanya, "You don't need to worry because before my regression I did many terrible things." But for Kanya it was the opposite, because to her this hero was very important. Returning to reality, she quickly turned on the light, sensing that something was wrong with Frey as he slept. Kanya turned to look at him, her eyes filled with worry. Seeing Frey clinging to her, she grew somber, wishing she could shoulder his burden. She wanted to take even a small fraction of his invisible pain. Kanya glanced at the stuffed cat on the table, and as she picked it up, an idea flashed through her mind. That's right, I just need to use my support system skill to infuse magic into the cat. Without hesitation, Kanya closed her eyes and began to cast the spell. In his dream, Frey was fumbling through a world of complete darkness, walking forward unconsciously, even though he had no idea where he was. Suddenly, a cat appeared out of nowhere and approached him, making Frey feel as if he'd found a sliver of light because at least he wasn't alone. But his relief was short-lived. Frey happily petted the kitten and decided to find its owner, so he stood up holding the cat. He looked around, but a thick fog obscured his vision in every direction. Not far away, there were two figures. Frey moved closer, hiding behind a wall, and saw his younger self holding a vial of medicine and approaching a little girl. Looking closer, he realized it was Fochi. The hero was stunned, wondering why he was seeing this memory from before his regression as he vaguely became aware of his situation. His own presence was fading. The little girl took the vial, asking who he was and why he was giving it to her. And the dream version of Frey introduced himself. He explained his reasons, but Fochi didn't believe him. Sensing something wasn't normal, Frey vaguely recalled that this wasn't how they first met. The dream version of Frey quickly reassured Fochi, saying, "It's understandable that you're suspicious of me. You can't blame the boy for trying to prove he was a good person," immediately placing 2 potions in front of her to reassure her after he finished speaking. He stood up regardless of whether Fochi wanted to use them or not. Seeing little Frey get up, she started to panic, asking, "Where are you going, little boy?" He pointed to the church in front of them. "You can also go to the church over there." After saying that, little Frey turned and left. But he didn't forget to add that the people in the church are all good people and that Fochi could trust them. As the boy prepared to leave, all of her defenses suddenly vanished, replaced by an anxiety that made her need someone by her side. But that little boy had already turned and walked away, leaving Fochi all alone again. Just then, the fog began to clear, and it was also at that moment Gabor began to turn to stone. Witnessing this dream felt like a cosmic signal, a kind of system notification telling him something important, remembering what had just happened. With Fochi, he suddenly realized she wasn't the type of person to lie, as if someone was manipulating his memories. He stood there silently stunned, wondering what he should do next. Suddenly, a black fog began to thicken, as making them both confused. That strange fog was enveloping his entire body as if it were transporting him somewhere. His intuition told him this was not a good turn of events. An image of Fochi appeared, her body covered in a red liquid and wrapped in ropes with weapons piercing her body, looking truly horrifying. Frey's body gradually sank into darkness, and he felt that something wasn't right. If he continued down this path, before he could even consider his fate, he was plunged into the void. A voice calling Frey's name reached his ears. He slowly opened his eyes, the voice still echoing nearby him. "How long are you planning to sleep? You need to wake up right now." As soon as the words were spoken, Frey jolted awake. Seeing this, the gloomy voice rang out again. "So you're finally awake." The dream version of Fochi, full of resentment, blamed him. "You're the criminal who pushed me into this state." After she finished speaking, fresh blood splattered all over Frey's face and clothes. He couldn't understand why out of everything, Kanya would show him this particular memory. A blood-soaked hand silently rose behind him as Glana grabbed Frey's shoulder, inquiring, Is killing fun?" It was then he noticed a pool of blood suddenly appearing beneath him, causing him to scream. Frey raised his hands, and looked at them trembling as he asked, "Where did all this blood come from?" At that moment, another voice gently called out, "Young master." The 2 Kanya sisters, they appeared at the same time and knelt before the hero as she smiled and said, "We killed them as you wished, a task the system completed. Are you satisfied now after your regression? For I couldn't take it anymore." He screamed internally, "Is anybody there? Please get me out of here." More and more people began to cling to him, causing him to cry out in fear, begging for help. A few seconds later, Frey's body sank into darkness again. Kanya sensed this wasn't right, thinking his conscious was running wild, so she bit her hand to pull him back. If this situation continued, Frey would become a mindless husk. She desperately tried to hold on to his hand. Seeing his entire body sinking into the void, Kanya reminded herself that she was here to help him, that a true hero wouldn't give up. She knew she had to do something, but in the body of a cat there wasn't much she could do. Just then her grip slipped. Frey's entire body immediately plunged into the void. Just as his body was drifting aimlessly, a flash of light appeared, followed by Frey falling into the sea, sending water splashing everywhere. The blinding light awakened him. Frey immediately opened his eyes but couldn't recognize where he was. Before him was a clear blue sky, and behind him the sea felt incredibly soft. This felt like a complete regression to a more peaceful time. A stark contrast to before. Suddenly a voice rang out, "Thank goodness I made it in time." This voice made Frey feel incredibly. Amidst a familiar yet startling scene, his mother appeared and said, "Fortunately, I left a small amount of power in your subconscious to prevent this." She gently told him, "You won't be tormented by nightmares for a while. This is the last gift I have for you." He couldn't help but feel emotional seeing his mother once more. She imparted, "Frey, the path you've chosen is a thorny one. Things may not always go as you wish. In those moments, remember what is truly important." Then she completely vanished. In just a few short minutes, Frey hadn't even had a chance to say a word to his mother, tears still lingering in his eyes, and her words echoed in his ears. "Remember what you truly want to protect." And with that, the dream ended. Connie awoke with a start, quickly calling out to Frey. She sat up to see him at his desk and hurriedly asked if he was all right in the dream. Frey now understood that the cat was actually Kanya. While reading a note in his hand, he said, "Thank you, it helped me feel better." A little later, she felt a pang of guilt. "No, I'm sorry for being so useless." Frey, trembling, recounted seeing his mother in a vision. She told him that when he felt trapped, he just needed to remember what he wanted to protect. Reaching this point, Frey once again felt conflicted. "But honestly, I'm so worried. If my memories from before my regression are being manipulated, what can I possibly trust? Even the book of prophecy you've been relying on might be a lie." Hearing this, Kanya suddenly hugged Frey from behind, whispering softly, "If that's the case, then just believe in me." She comforted him. "You've struggled more than anyone. Even if your memories are manipulated and all your efforts seem pointless, I will never forget the incredible way you've lived." Indeed, from the very beginning, Frey knew it was a difficult path. A difficult one, yet the young hero pressed on, driven by his determination to protect those he loved. He knew this was not the time to despair. Even if he failed, his efforts wouldn't just disappear. A few days later, the voice of a teacher echoed across the school grounds. "We will now begin the midterm exams. Please come forward in order." Frey was relieved that nothing had happened after that incident. Thanks to that, he was ready to face Arena. He had acquired the maximum level of mana transmission and leveled it up. The system window appeared. Mana transmission level 3 allows the user to transfer mana to others through physical contact. Continuous use may lead to mana depletion. Frey had practiced extensively with Kanya, so he was certain it would be a success. Glana and Fochi were up first. Iset gauged the situation. "Alright, are you two ready?" She didn't forget to add a reminder. "Let me be clear, there will be no withdrawing this time." Fochi's eyes turned blue as she softly told her not to worry. "I have no intention of backing down." The moment she spoke, she instantly summoned her power. Klena on the opposite side also began to make her move, her entire body enveloped in a blinding golden light. Frey observed the situation, sensing that Klena was plotting something. Seeing that look in her eyes, he was confident the attack couldn't possibly reach him. She gathered her power into a sphere of light and quickly launched her attack. Fochi also mustered enough power to block the blow. The sphere of light collided with the shield and went flying in another direction. As fate would have it, it flew straight toward Frey and Kanya. He cursed under his breath. Damn it! So the plan was to deflect the attack this way. The sphere was moving incredibly fast, giving him no time to dodge. In the instant Frey drew his sword, Iset dashed in to block the attack for him. She glanced toward the two fighters and said, "I'll trust that was just an accident, but if that was deliberate, you'll both be disqualified." With that said, Iset sheathed her sword. Down in the arena, the two fighters rushed each other. Klana yelled, "There's no other way! Let's end this quickly." Fochi agreed immediately, unleashing an attack, but Klana managed to parry it. Seizing the opening, she calculated a counterattack. The blow landed squarely on Fochi's back, and in pain, she coughed up a mouthful of blood before collapsing to the ground. Seeing this, Eris quickly called out, "Stop, that's enough, Klana is the winner," she announced. "Next is the match between Irina and Frey." Kanya said anxiously, "Young master, please don't overexert yourself." But he replied confidently, "It's fine, we've already studied the perfect way to lose, haven't we?" Frey casually strode toward the arena. Seeing that both fighters were in position, Iset asked once more, "Are you both ready?" Arena, holding a ball of fire in her hand, sneered, "Get ready to grovel on the ground, you trash." His attitude was just as cocky, confidently sizing her up. "Pretty cocky, aren't you?" Frey immediately drew his sword, declaring, "You won't be so smug for long." In that instant, he was already calculating his next move in his head. All right, the plan's set. Time to act. A palpable killing intent radiated from both of them. Seeing this, Eris said, "All right, you're ready." "You're ready, aren't you?" The moment she gave the signal to start, Frey charged forward. Arena also began concentrating her power into a fireball. Immediately after, 7 fireballs materialized around her, much to his disbelief. However, it seemed the power was too great for Arena to handle. Under the flickering flames, the strain on her face was clearly visible. Frey seized the opportunity, sword in hand, and lunged forward. The former hero knew exactly what would happen if she pushed herself too hard, a fact learned from his regression. This was all part of the plan. Frey channeled a blue light into his hand and then delivered a powerful blow to Arena's face, knocking her to the ground. Pain was etched on her face. He felt that one hit should have been enough. Outwardly, Frey put on an act, a contemptuous expression, saying, "As expected, you look better as a bug crawling on the ground." But inwardly he thought, "I'll share my mana with you." He immediately grabbed Arena by the neck. She furiously cursed, "You bastard," and then summoned a fireball aimed at his back. Still lost in his calculations, as if checking a mental system window, he didn't notice it at all. The fireball struck him squarely in the back, making him jolt. He went tumbling to the ground, screaming, "That hurts, you damn witch!" Seeing the tables turn, Arena immediately got to her feet, wiped the blood from her lip, and began pouring all her power into another fireball, cursing. Frey, looking at the massive orb of fire, he grew concerned. One hit was supposed to be enough. But Arena didn't stop. She seemed to be pouring every last bit of her power into this spell. Just as she seemed to be going berserk on the verge of igniting, Arena's body suddenly froze. All the immense power she had gathered vanished, and she collapsed in front of Frey. Seeing this, Iset announced, "If she doesn't get up in 10 seconds, Frey wins." She raised her fingers and began counting down from 10. Looking at the situation, Frey cursed inwardly. A single light tap was all it took. Why did she have to drain all her mana? He panicked. What do I do now? Even if her mana recovers, she won't be able to get up in time. Suddenly, he thought of a way he could stall by spouting nonsense. Just as Frey was about to put his plan into action, something appeared from the ground beneath them. At his and Arena's location, a blue magic circle appeared. Frey recognized it as teleportation magic. He cursed under his breath, wondering what fresh hell this was. Instantly, a blinding light erupted, engulfing them both. Just like that, they vanished right before Eris's eyes and the other students. She was instantly on alert, warning everyone to fall back. Iset spoke up, "I couldn't detect the magic, until it had already activated. There could be other traps. Please do not move from your positions." In the crowd, Ariane looked on, bewildered. She looked at the scroll in her hand, wondering in terror, wasn't this supposed to be a recovery scroll? Meanwhile, in a gloomy forest, a massive rat was gnawing on something beside a human skeleton. A flash of blue light appeared nearby, startling it. It shrieked just as Frey and Arena were dropped into the forest by the magic circle. He groaned, slowly opening his eyes and thinking, "I really thought that would work." Looking at Arena still unconscious on the ground, Frey reflected on the situation. Arena went berserk. My regression-based plan failed, and to top it all off, this incident happened. It's true what they say, when it rains it pours. He went to check on her. Fortunately, there were no visible injuries. She had only passed out. Only then did Frey have a moment to take in his surroundings. "Isn't this the Grey Forest, home to most of the continent's monsters?" he muttered. "With a hero who can't use magic and with the hero so gravely injured, can he even survive?" Recalling the situation, I think I can guess whose fault it is. It was most likely Ariane. Frey had seen her holding a magic scroll, but for her to assist with a teleportation scroll, is hard to believe. There must have been some kind of interference. Thinking this, he sighed in frustration. I'll ask about the circumstances later. Frey began to strategize. First, we need to find a way out of here. How am I going to get her out of this den of monsters? He then immediately summoned his system inventory right there in the forest. Puppet mask conceals the user's true identity from everyone within a certain range until the mask is removed. It perfectly disguises your voice and appearance. After reading the item description, Frey found it quite useful. He put on the mask, certain that no one would recognize him. Once prepared, Frey called out to Arena, "Hey miss, please wake up, can you hear me?" With his help, she managed to sit up. As he wiped her face, he said, "Hurry, we need to leave." Frey's expression was grim as he told her, "This place is extremely dangerous. We have to get out of here as quickly as possible." Arena looked around bewildered and demanded, "Where are we? You explain yourself." Frey explained that he had rescued her using a teleportation scroll. He untied her restraints and reassured her, "You're safe now, let's go." Arena's entire body was trembling. "I don't understand any of this," she stammered. "Who are you?" After a moment's thought, he replied, "It seems I should give a brief introduction." Frey explained with a serious tone, "I was once an intelligence officer for the Starlight family, but I fell gravely ill and was then abandoned in this forest." As Arena watched him suspiciously, he continued, "When I requested retirement from Frey, I was brought here, in secret. They told me my life would be over if I ever left this place." Hearing this, she gave a bitter smile and replied, "That's no different than telling you to go and die." Frey pointed to himself, "That's why he thought I was a ghost and fled earlier. He assumed I had perished long ago." And he dropped this sword in his haste. He then pointed towards a trail and said, "There's a relatively safe place that way. Let's hurry before Frey brings reinforcements." Arena reluctantly agreed, telling him to slow down a bit, though deep down she was still suspicious. His story made sense, but something felt off. It was strange how he kept rushing her. Suddenly, Arena had a bad feeling. An acquaintance of Frey helping me is highly unusual. To be safe, I should refuse his help. With that thought, she composed herself. And then said calmly, "Thank you, but I'll go on my own." Arena even patted his shoulder reassuringly. "Don't let my appearance fool you, I'm quite capable." Frey refused. "No, it's far too risky." At that moment, Arena was mentally calculating her own strength. "I only have about 10% of my mana left, but this amount, should be enough unless a mid or high-tier monster shows up." The moment she had that thought, a creature immediately appeared before her. A giant bear materialized. Arena was stunned, wondering, why is a creature like this here? It's a high-tier monster that should only appear near the border. The ferocious bear immediately lunged at Arena. Facing its fangs and claws, she could only stand frozen, completely powerless. Just then, Frey appeared behind Arena. Without a shred of hesitation, he struck down the monster. She watched in astonishment as the massive beast collapsed. Frey spoke, "This is precisely why I couldn't let you go alone." As soon as the words left his mouth, Arena urgently pointed behind him and screamed a warning. Frey spun around to find that behind him, was a horde of goblins charging straight for them. Frey glanced at them through his mask and clicked his tongue in annoyance. He quickly grabbed Arena's arm. "Bah!" While she was still processing what had happened and yelled, "Run!" the two of them immediately fled from the pursuing horde. After a while, they had far outrun the mob. Both stopped panting. Arena wondered aloud, "Why is there a high-level monster here?" Frey explained that this place is a habitat for all sorts of monsters. Suddenly, she noticed his blood-soaked mask and cried out in concern. "Are you okay?" Frey replied. "It's a chronic condition of mine. I just pushed myself a little too hard." Arena reached for his blood-soaked mask. "You seem to be having trouble breathing too. Why not take it off?" He immediately slapped her hand away. Frey clutched his mask tightly. "I don't want anyone to see my ruined face." Arena, abashed, took her hand and rubbed her cheek, replying, "Oh, I see." She then offered, "Wait here for a bit, okay? I'll go find some fruit or something. I don't know if you believe me, but I'm quite familiar with places like this." He responded, "Then don't go too far." Arena smiled brightly, placing a hand on her chest as she introduced herself. Frey also introduced himself as Leanne. She exclaimed, "Thank you for saving me twice. You're like a true hero." He quickly explained, "It's nothing. How could I just abandon someone in that situation?" Arena waved as she left. "I'll be back quickly with some fruit, so you just stay put." "Okay." Watching Arena's back fade into the dark, gloomy mist, Frey collapsed to his knees as soon as she was completely gone. "Never imagined I'd be grateful to a monster," he muttered. He gave a wry smile, wiping away the trickle of blood running down his chin. "I was worried that hasty cover story wouldn't work, but since I saved her, she seems to have lowered her suspicions." Frey leaned against a tree trunk and opened the system. "Speaking of which, how is Arena's quest going?" He stared intently at the quest window, continuing his thought, "The Academy is currently reserving its decision." Frey sighed. "For a student who disappeared in the middle of an exam, that's not surprising." He stared blankly at the sparkling night sky. "There's no penalty, so I should just focus on getting out of here. This forest is fraught with danger." Frey was certain one wrong step could get him killed. Over the next 3 days in the bleak gray forest, Frey told Arena he would guide her to the edge of the woods. During that time, she felt terrible. But since she couldn't use magic, Arena had no choice but to rely on Frey. She understood that she needed to gather food, avoid monsters, and keep moving on her own. There were no major issues, and the two of them safely reached the exit area. At this point, Irina set down the fruit she had just gathered worriedly, thinking that by now, Ariane must be worried about her. Irina hugged herself, staring at the warm fire with a glum expression. When I see her, I have to apologize. Suddenly, Frey approached from behind her carrying a wild boar. Irina asked in alarm, "You caught a wild boar in your condition?" He replied, "Don't worry, for some reason there are fewer monsters in this area." Frey set it down and she asked again, "But Leanne, do you really have to stay here?" While chopping off a boar leg, he wondered, "Why are we talking about this again?" Irina placed a hand on her chest with a guilty look. "You can't just stay here forever." Frey calmly turned to look at her. "In any case, my answer hasn't changed. I don't have long to live anyway. And I don't have the confidence to escape from Frey after leaving this place." Hearing this, Irina immediately exclaimed with a determined voice, "I will find a way." He continued, "I don't want to be a burden to you. Frey will surely seek revenge. This whole regression feels like a curse, and in your situation, you can't afford to worry about me. Besides, once you get used to it, living here isn't so bad." She raised her hands in defeat. "You're also one stubborn person, huh? It's been 3 days and you haven't budged an inch. I give up, all right? Here, have some fruit." While waiting for the main course, Frey agreed. Irina observed him as he stared at the pear in his hand, thinking about abandoning. The person who saved his life was wrong, but there must be a reason for it. Suddenly, he was surprised as he held the fruit in his hand. "Is this an ice dragon fruit?" She was curious about the fruit named ice dragon fruit, and Frey quickly explained, "Yes, when I was young. I used to eat it all the time. It's really delicious." Irina immediately gave him a suspicious look, thinking to herself, "That fruit has another name, but I didn't know it and named it myself. It was only much later that I learned its real name, but only I Shema, and he knew that name." Just then, the ground beneath them began to shake violently. Irina looked ahead, wondering what that was. "An earthquake," Frey quickly added. "It seems the worst-case scenario has happened. This is the place where the Demon King's army disposes of the corpses of all kinds of powerful monsters. It's both a habitat and a dumping ground for modified monsters and failed chimera experiments. All sorts of creatures live here. Of course, I can take down most of them." Suddenly, a dark golem emerged, toppling the surrounding trees in an instant. Its entire body had completely risen from the ground. He continued, "The only thing I can't defeat, even with a group of high-level monsters, is a dark golem." Frey gripped the hilt of his sword and decisively drew it. "I can't fight it while protecting someone else." He pointed his sword at the dark golem, his aura flaring like a true hero. "I'll buy some time. You need to find a way to escape." As a strong gust of wind swept through the forest, Frey glanced at Irina, thinking, "This might be reckless, but can I actually pull this off?" He stared intently at the dark golem's information panel, a feature of his unique system. It appears as the final boss in the latter half of the scenario. It absorbs the power of defeated enemies and was later collected by the Demon King's army. It hasn't absorbed much power yet, but its combat strength is already on par with an entire army. I can't use my celestial mana because it would reveal my identity. The golem's eyes glowed as it looked at them, announcing, "Target identification is it? Complete." In its vision, both of their faces appeared clearly. Initiating elimination. It immediately fired a beam of energy. Fortunately, Frey managed to grab and push her down just in time. They both hit the ground right as the blast of power reached where they stood. He exclaimed, "There's no time, you have to escape." Irina was resolute, "But I can't just leave you." As the dark golem prepared to attack again, Frey continued, "I don't have much time left anyway." He placed a hand on her shoulder, reassuring her, "So I want to use what's left for you. Only you can get revenge for me." Hearing this sent Irina's mind reeling. Suddenly she spoke up, "You seem to have misunderstood. Compared to that scumbag?" He looked puzzled. Irina gave a slight smile, explaining, "It's nothing. I was just talking to myself. Thank you, Leanne. Even if I die, I will never forget what you've done." "For me," she hurried away. "Don't worry, I will definitely kill that bastard." Frey shut his eyes tightly, thinking to himself, "It seems my acting skills are improving. Thanks to my regression, I can finally do things right this time." He observed the massive dark golem. Irina is safe. Frey immediately summoned his sword. "It's time to fight for real." The golem's emergency system activated, stating, "Target B has disappeared." As restoring pursuit protocol. At that moment, Frey charged towards the dark golem, eyeing it as a powerful aura enveloped his body. I am your real opponent. A sword strike like a trail of stars swiftly cut through the dark golem's legs. Immediately toppled backward, the golem's internal system announced a balance system error, searching for countermeasures against Frey. Observed it calculating, for now it's immobilized. All I need to do is destroy the core. Suddenly its arm opened to reveal the gun barrels hidden within. Countermeasure B1 deploying mana missiles. The rockets shot toward Frey, causing him to stare in disbelief. Are you kidding me? Don't you know any moderation? Frey hurriedly channeled his mana into his sword. He quickly shattered the incoming missiles. The dark golem stared intently at Frey through the clouds of brown dust as he wiped away the streak of blood on his face, thinking, this reminds me of a past failure from before my regression. It will get dangerous if it keeps firing. I have to destroy its core quickly. Its core. The golem continued, updating target data. Target recognized as a level 1 threat. Switching to F14Z, executing self-destruct sequence. Frey ran forward in a panic. Oh crap, if it self-destructs, not just me, but Arena will be in danger too. A hero can't let that happen. I have to find a way to stop it. At that moment, he leaped high into the air. Frey gripped his sword tightly, facing the dark golem. In an instant, he plunged his sword down into its body. As Frey pushed deeper, he let out a great shout, and a massive pillar of purple light shot through the sky. A massive explosion sent rocks and treetops flying. The purple smoke slowly dissipated after the blast. He remained in his pose, letting out a long breath. Suddenly, Frey's entire body weakened and his faint coughs echoed. His mask shattered and fell to the ground. Frey gritted his teeth. You damn golem, because of you, this is useless now. Anymore. Suddenly a crow cawed as it flew over his head. Frey immediately recognized it as a reconnaissance crow. His face showed a look of unease. Come to think of it, with all the noise at the forest entrance, it's not strange for the villagers to come and check. Frey thought worriedly, if they find me here, Arena will discover my identity. He staggered to his feet. I must avoid that at all costs. Suddenly Frey's entire body froze, stunning him. What's happening? My body? He let go of the sword in his hand, his eyes dazed. Suddenly a plume of purple smoke appeared in the night sky, and Kanya's silhouette quickly appeared to catch Frey. His eyes fluttered open as he tried to recognize her. Kanya smiled brightly under the moonlight. It's all right now, young master. Every thing else can be left to me. Kanya smiled gently at him, comforting him. It's all right now. Just leave the rest to me. She worriedly embraced Frey as he collapsed into her arms from exhaustion. Frey's face was weary. Kanya looked at him and said, there's a carriage waiting nearby. I'll take you back to the dormitory without anyone noticing. Frey's eyes were squeezed shut, but he still managed to stammer, I'm counting on you. In a luxurious building, someone suddenly cried out. It turned out to be Kanya, who shouted in surprise when Frey woke up after being unconscious for several days. She had been restless since he had been unconscious for 2 straight days. Frey reassured Kanya that he was fine, just a bit tired. He asked her for an immediate update on the current situation after the days he'd been unconscious. Kanya looked at him with a worried sigh. She politely answered him, the investigation bureau has looked into why you were all transported to the forest. It turns out it was due to a magic scroll that, Ariana used to support Elena. He asked, stunned. She used a magic scroll to help Elena? Kanya replied with a serious expression, but, it was supposed to be a recovery scroll, yet you two were transported. Frey wondered, so was it just an accident or something else? She recalled the investigation bureau questioning Ariani and said, the investigators also believe there's a high probability that's what happened? If Ariani's testimony is corroborated, it will be ruled an accident. As soon as he heard this, Frey, placing a hand on his chin, wondering if such a coincidence could really happen. We can't rule out the possibility that the shop sold a counterfeit scroll. Having concluded his thought, he immediately ordered Kanya, for now investigate the origin of that scroll. Standing nearby, she replied, someone is already looking into it, sir. Bathed in the dim light, Frey anxiously asked about Elena's condition. Kanya answered that she had been found in a nearby village and had already returned to the academy. He gripped his hands tightly on the bedsheets, his expression growing somber, muttering, everything went too perfectly. It was all to ensure she escaped safely. Frey then remembered something and asked, and what about the result of the duel with her? Kanya lowered her gaze and replied softly, the results came in yesterday. You were victorious. He clenched his fist, hesitating before saying, so that's how it ended. It would have been simpler if I had lost. Frey considered, wondering if he should be glad there was no penalty. Suddenly, the system displayed a notification and he continued to muse, "It's a difficult quest, but not an impossible one." Frey thought pensively, "There's still time. Once I've recovered, I can find a solution." Shortly after he spoke up, "Thank you, Kanya. Because of you, I'm aware of the situation." He then asked Kanya to let him rest for a while. As he was speaking, she took his hand and stammered, "Actually, there's one more thing I haven't told you." But Kanya, seemingly frightened by something, quickly pulled her hand back. However, she then confessed to Frey, "The reason I found your location so quickly was thanks to the Duke." Frey's eyes widened in bewilderment as he stared at her, questioning. "My father? Isn't he supposed to be traveling with Arya?" Frey was stunned as Kanya explained that when his father heard about the incident, he immediately went to the magic tower to find out where the scroll led. He received the answer without any trouble, but on the way back, he suddenly collapsed from the strain and is still comatose. Frey's face darkened and he asked her, "Would you mind if I leaned on you for a moment?" At this, Kanya blushed so hard she was speechless, but closing her eyes with resolve, she thought for a moment. Fortunately, she agreed to let Frey lean on her. A few days later, over the weekend, a worried Kanya urged Frey to wait until he was fully recovered, saying it wouldn't be too late. She helped him into his cloak as she listened to Frey declare with the resolve of a true hero, "I can't just lie here while my father is still unconscious. Besides, I won't be staying long. I have to prepare for the main quest." Kanya spoke up, saying that she understood. Then Frey's eyes widened when Kanya added, "Elena is waiting for you outside." He didn't say much but immediately requested for her to be let in. She complied with his request. As soon as he spoke, Kanya immediately went to open the door while Frey waited. As Irina entered, he asked, "You were saved by Leon, correct?" She said nothing, too ashamed to meet his gaze. Irina thought to herself that she was a failure. In that moment, she immediately dropped to one knee and declared, "I lost the match. Therefore, as promised, I will offer you my absolute obedience." Frey remained composed, but in contrast, Irina was pleading with him to return Arian's freedom. Frey remained silent, raising a hand to his chin as he thought, "I assume she came for revenge over the incident in the forest, but she's come to negotiate with me directly." The one at the center of the incident was deep in thought, but he immediately ordered Kanya to prepare a carriage. She bowed politely in agreement. Frey then produced a necklace with a skull that was emitting a sinister red glow. He flashed a chilling smile and asked, "Now why would I do that? You are my slave." Irina looked up in fear, resolving to do whatever Frey demanded. Standing nearby, he accepted her vow. Frey lowered his head. His face darkened as he asked, "So should we finish what we started in the forest?" Tears streamed down Irina's face, but she still told him to do as he pleased. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the space, and Frey, looking extremely annoyed, clicked his tongue. His lips pursed in frustration. As Irina remained seated, he turned to leave, saying, "I have no interest in someone who is so obedient." Suddenly, the system displayed a notification. 300 points, meaningless threat. Frey spun around, angrily pointing at the seated Irina. He ordered her to clean up, stating that after she finished, he would decide what to do with your friend Irina. She fearfully agreed. The moment she did, Frey slammed the door shut, leaving her inside, clenching her hands in worry. Now only, Irina was alone in this empty room. Outside, Kanya immediately ran to Frey and asked, why was she here? He told her to get in the carriage first so they could talk on the way. She agreed and boarded the carriage. The driver cracked his whip and shouted, urging the horses on. In the speeding carriage, Frey rested his chin on his hand and calmly explained that Irina wanted him to grant Arian her freedom. It's a nuisance, but I will release her after we return. There are plenty of other ways to plead a case or offer a bribe. He then asked Kanya, how is your condition? You used dark magic in the forest, didn't you? She assured him. She was fine, replying, it wasn't a powerful spell, so it didn't affect my life force. Frey continued, right now you're my only source of support. Thanks to you, I can still manage a smile in this wretched world. He clenched his fist, then said hesitantly, but I've realized something from this regression. From this incident, from now on, I want to truly rely on your strength. Kanya blushed shyly and replied, but of course, my life belongs to you, Frey responded. Not like that. If you risk your life to help me, then it's meaningless. If I lose consciousness again or get teleported away, I need you to be able to act, so please take care of yourself. Kanya replied, in other words, there's no way for me to directly support you as a hero should. Frey, while tapping on a screen, said not directly, but there is a way. Suddenly a potion appeared. He said seriously, this item and your sister will definitely be a great help. In a magnificent palace, Abraham was still comatose. Frey took his hands and silently promised, when this is all over, I will definitely return. His expression was indescribably cold. Suddenly there was a noise outside the door. Kanya asked with some hesitation, "Will it be all right to leave things like this, young master?" But Frey just replied coolly, "Lingering any longer is pointless. Right now they see me as a foolish and ungrateful son. Staying here too long will cause unnecessary attention." However, Kanya still wanted to say more, but Frey, our future hero, cut her off, saying it's fine. He isn't in any life-threatening danger. As long as I follow the path my regression has shown me, everything will return to normal. After saying that, he didn't elaborate and switched to the topic of visiting Kanya's sister's room. As Frey walked, he wondered what the little girl was up to. Kanya replied, "I used magic to make her fall asleep. After all, we can't have her making a fuss when she sees the young master." Frey understood and told her to wait in the waiting room for him. He gently cracked the door open and peeked inside, then approached the bedside to look at Katia and couldn't help but remark, "She's the spitting image of Kanya, but their innate abilities are polar opposites." With that, Frey took out the hidden potential elixir, a rare item from his system, to awaken the power within Katia. Unlike Kanya, who consumes her own life force to use magic, Katia possesses a power that specializes in stabilizing and controlling dark magic. On top of that, she can even manipulate the dark magic of others. That ability alone is more than enough to help Kana. Frey mused while giving Katia the elixir. Because she's still young, only a fraction of her power will be awakened. This divine elixir will unlock the hidden potential within her. After a moment of contemplation, he finished giving Katia all of the divine elixir. Frey smiled happily, looking at the sleeping girl. He estimated it would take about half a day for the elixir to take effect when suddenly, a voice boomed, "What do you think you're doing to Katia?" It was followed by a sudden attack. Frey, still lost in his smile, was abruptly struck. He couldn't react in time and was sent crashing straight into the wall. Arya, however, paid him no mind and continuously interrogated him. "What did you just give Katia to drink? Was it the elixir, wasn't it, Frey?" Only then did Frey manage to react, realizing the one who had just hit him was Arya. The girl, her face tear-streaked, scolded, "Who gave you permission to say my name? You're disgusting. It's all your fault that father fell ill, and yet can you only think of such depraved things?" Hearing the girl's curses, Frey felt terrible. He silently lamented, "It's been so long since I've seen my sister, yet instead of a proper greeting, humiliating her is my only option." After his regression, the former hero had to change. Having no other choice, Frey forcefully shoved Arya's hand off him. He said coldly, "Don't pin this on me." Father collapsed on his own. "Besides, what's wrong with me touching my own property?" Arya, though scared, tried to talk back. "Katia is not an object, you scumbag." At hearing this, Frey just laughed. "Since father is gone, I am now the head of the Starlight family. Whether it's this house, that girl, or you, everything is mine to do with as I please. If you understand, then get lost. My fun has only just begun." Despite his words, Arya stubbornly tried to stop him. The girl, with tears and snot running down her face, begged Frey to stop. Arya cried and pleaded, "Please go back to being the kind person you were." But despite her pleas, Frey bluntly shoved the girl down, clicking his tongue in annoyance. "You're killing my mood. I'll let you off for today. Your crying is an eyesore. From now on, make sure I don't see your face." As soon as the door slammed shut, the system announced, "Plus 300 malice points for showing no mercy even to family." Arya cried, unable to understand. "Big brother, what on earth happened to you? My gentle brother who was always so kind to everyone. Why have you become like this?" Frey, sitting outside the door, heard the girl's resentful cries and could only grit his teeth in torment. After all, he had only recently gotten used to this new persona. Frey, lying on his bed, blamed himself. "Having to act like this towards my family has such a negative impact." But he still had to remind himself, "No, I must abandon all my personal feelings. Anyone who still cares for me in the next event will suffer the consequences." A while later, he heard Kana at the door. She came in to report. "With just a simple procedure, the effects are already clearly visible. Until now, my dark magic has always overflowed excessively. Thanks to the treatment, I can now draw out the precise amount I need. Now complex tasks like creating clones can be performed with ease." Frey couldn't help but be satisfied. "Excellent. This will make it easier to conceal my identity in the future when we return. You two enter the subconscious of the commoners in the dorms and strengthen the protections around them. That way, we can focus on completing the main mission. Elena has sworn to obey me, and I have a grasp on their weaknesses. Unless a special event occurs, we should be able to complete the mission without any issues." Speaking of special events, it suddenly reminded Frey, hasn't Serena returned from her trip yet? During that time, in a location on the Western continent, a subordinate was next to Serena was curious about what was in her hand, but she just smiled without a word. That subordinate assessed that they looked just like the worm-like characters we had seen before. She suddenly announced that we would be going to the ruins of the hero from 1,000 years ago. What's this about? Serena chuckled and replied, because we don't have enough time, we have to take a shortcut. On the paper it was written, becoming a hero brought me suffering, but I believe my descendants will face even greater hardships. By the way, the fact that this world has no chicken is just tragic. Serena's face filled with anticipation. Right now, Frey is on his first mission, isn't he? When my regression is complete and I return with my memories of everything, I wonder what kind of face you'll make. The scene shifts to a large building in a classical architectural style with numerous windows and spires. Kanya respectfully opened the horse-drawn carriage door for Frey to board. Up above, Arya stood behind a window, silently watching their figures depart. The young girl's eyes were filled with sadness mixed with a hint of regret. Then Arya drew the curtains and turned away. Back with Kanya, she quickly pulled the carriage door shut. Well then, let's depart. Just as they were about to leave, Kanya asked Frey worriedly, Young master, are you really not going to see young Lady Arya one last time? He replied with a cold and resolute expression, No, if I do, it will only make things harder. Seeing Frey's determined look, she wanted to say something more but held her tongue. A moment later, the carriage began to roll. Kanya changed the subject. By the way, can you tell me anything more about the first mission? She asked, looking at him and adding, I want to know more to see if I can be of any help. Frey pondered for a moment, then nodded in agreement. That's true. If I tell you, you can act in case I'm unable to. Without hesitation, he got straight to the point. The first main quest is to capture the culprit behind the attack on the commoner's dormitory. Frey then elaborated on the plan. If I lose to Irina, I'll become the culprit. The system screen displayed a notification. Main quest duel Irina Filius during the midterm exam and achieve victory. Reward a charge of dark power. This is a quest that doesn't affect the route's progression, so there will be no penalty applied even if the event is skipped. He said confidently, I could easily complete it if I just committed the crime and turned myself in. Frey focused on the screen while voicing his speculation, as long as I catch the culprit, everything will go smoothly. Even if I do get caught, I can just bribe my way out. The system sent a message. Option 1. Become the mastermind, avoid direct confrontation and manipulate other villains, or Option 2. Defeat Irina and claim the reward. Difficulty high due to unidentified parties involved in the attack. Frey said helplessly, but since that plan failed, I no longer know who the culprit is. Hearing this, Kanya didn't hesitate to share her thoughts. Even so, wouldn't it be better if you orchestrated it yourself, young master? He immediately refuted that idea. If I do that, there's a chance another culprit will appear anyway. She nodded in understanding. I see. What a troublesome system. With that, Frey laid out the first step of his plan. For now, first things first, let's find out if there are any demons lurking around the commoner's dormitory. Kanya asked doubtfully, Demons, not nobles. He calmly gazed at the scenery outside the window and replied, That's also a possibility, but this provides a perfect opportunity for demons to infiltrate. Looking over the empire and its chaotic state, Frey had to admit that the nation was now completely corrupt. He continued, We're in a situation where the commoner's dissatisfaction with the nobles' oppression could erupt at any moment. Frey then shared a prediction, one he knew from his regression. All it would take is one move like the nobles attacking the commoner's dormitory to trigger riots all across the empire. Hearing this, Kanya began to grasp the problem. So the demons plan to exploit this to overthrow the empire. He smiled and confirmed, Exactly. The prophecy also indicates that if I fail, the Demon King's faction will make its move. She nodded in understanding. Well then, first, we need to figure out how to find the demons disguised as humans. Frey's voice was filled with confidence. As for that, there's no need to worry. As long as I buy that one item, his eyes sharpened, his face brimming with confidence. We can easily solve this problem. In a dark alley of the empire, Frey and Kanya were now wearing cloaks to avoid attracting attention. He clutched a bag in his hand and said, With this, our preparations are as good as complete. She looked at the item in Frey's hand and asked doubtfully, Does a demon detector actually work? He quickly answered Kanya's question. It will work on everyone except the Demon King or high-ranking demons. Frey then mentioned the advantage they had. But since I can still identify high-ranking demons through my systems window, it's not an issue. Hearing that, she let out a sigh of relief. Then I guess it will have its uses. He nodded in agreement with Kanya's words. Usually it's the source of my problems, but at times like this it's very helpful. Immediately after, Frey didn't forget to ask her, By the way, you've started the investigation on Serena, haven't you? Kanya quickly replied, Yes, I've been asking for information in the back alleys. I also plan to deploy my shadow dolls. To be honest, I'm not confident if she's truly trying to hide. Hearing that, he could only sigh helplessly. That's right. With our abilities, it won't be easy to find her. An image of her then formed in Frey's mind. Exactly. After all, she is the heir to the ML family, the clan in charge of the Empire's espionage and assassination missions. Afterwards, the two moved on to their next destination. At the same time, something caught his eye. We don't have a choice but to give it a try, I suppose. Frey's eyes widened in utter shock at the sight of gaunt children huddled on a thin blanket laid on the cold stone ground. One of them kept whimpering, "I'm so hungry." The little girl beside him tried to comfort him. "Try to endure it. We don't have any money left." Frey stared at the kids confused. "Aren't these the children who were captured by the succubus queen?" The little boy clutched the blanket and said regretfully, "We should have been more careful with the money that masked man gave us." The little girl heard him and replied, "Don't be silly. If we had waited any longer, the adults would have just snatched it all away." Hearing this, Frey's feet seemed to freeze in place. He lowered his head, relentlessly blaming himself. "It seems I was too naive. I thought that just giving those kids some pocket money would be enough to save them." Right after Frey made a blunt declaration, "I cannot let this continue. We need to build an orphanage." Kanya was immediately bewildered. "What are you on about now?" Frey's face took on a serious expression. "As a war hero, I cannot possibly ignore a situation like this." Despite having more than enough money, seeing his resolute expression, Kanya hastily tried to stop him. "You can't do that if you go through with this and expose your identity. What will become of us?" Suddenly, Frey took out an item and held it out to her. Kanya looked bewildered. Seeing her confusion, he didn't hesitate to explain, "This is the reward I received from the system for the quest to defeat Arena. It's this lifespan measuring device. As you can see, my time is limited to about 4 or 5 more years." Frey confessed his inner thoughts to her. "I want to do as much as I can while I'm still alive. If I can save people the way I saved you, then I feel like the sins of my past will be lessened." Hearing this, Kanya lowered her head helplessly. For you to say that, she could only compromise with Frey's wish. "It's just not fair." Realizing she couldn't persuade him, Kanya was forced to agree. "I understand. Very well, we'll build it under my name." She then walked over to the children and handed them a loaf of bread. Kanya looked at the children and smiled gently. The sight of food made them incredibly excited. "Look, bread!" Standing behind them, he smiled with satisfaction. Perhaps their lives can finally get better now. After that, Frey's gaze fell as he thought about his next task, attending the royal ball at the imperial palace in his father's stead. But at that thought, his expression relaxed. Since he already had a fiancée, he could comfortably turn away anyone who approached him. Cutting back to Klana's side, her mother Lamia was relentlessly trying to persuade her. "You are aware, aren't you, that if our family were to merge with the bloodline of the Honto hero, we would become the greatest threat to the imperial family, correct?" Despite this, she seemed somewhat apathetic, her face etched with frustration. She finally says something logical, but I know she's only after the Starlight's immense fortune. Feeling she had said her piece, Lamia quickly departed. She didn't forget to turn back for one last reminder. "In short, listen to me and marry Frey." Lamia looked back at Klana and added a threat. "If you fail, I will marry you off to the highest bidder. Prepare yourself." With that, she left without another word, leaving Klana all alone in the room. She clutched at her dress, her body trembling with rage. "There's no way that can happen." Klana clenched her fists, tears streaming down her face, unable to hide her indignation. "I would rather die than marry that despicable scum." The scene shifts to a magnificent castle with splendid, luxurious architecture. Frey gripped the demon detector tightly, his voice laced with disappointment. "Nothing today either. Yeah, you see, oi." Kanya, standing beside him, and questioned, "If it's just a routine patrol, I can handle it by myself." His demeanor was calm and collected. "It's fine. I have nothing else to do right now, and besides, walking with you helps me relax." Hearing this, a blush crept up Kanya's cheeks. She looked away, flustered. Well, that's good. By the way, I have something I wanted to give you." Kanya quickly produced a letter. Frey asked quizzically, "Is this about next week's ball?" She nodded in confirmation. "Yes, you must attend on your father's behalf." He took the letter and opened it. Let's see. The Emperor of the Empire requests that Frey von Starlight annuls his current engagement. The letter went on to propose a new engagement, replacing it with one to Klana Solar Sunrise. His expression was one of utter confusion, even bordering on panic, something completely unexpected from his regression. Frey's entire body froze. Based on the second oath between the first queen and the previous hero, what Kanya beside him was equally startled. Why so suddenly? He gently rubbed his temples, looking down with a weary gaze. "The second oath? I think I've read about it somewhere in the prophetic texts." Frey rubbed his forehead tiredly. "If I recall, it's related to the love story between my ancestor, the great hero, and the first queen." Just then, a group of female students suddenly appeared, squealing with excitement. "Lord Frey!" The female students quickly surrounded him, eagerly voicing their desires. "I heard you're looking for a partner for the upcoming debutante ball. I could be the one. I believe I would be the most compatible match for you." Frey seemed flustered, holding up a hand to block the group of girls. Internally, Frey felt a sense of helplessness. It seems they caught wind of the annulment somewhere and pounced. "Please don't spread false rumors." And just then, Kanya pushed them apart. The female students angrily glared at her. Kanya crossed her arms, adopting a firm stance. "Everyone, please step back. The young master already has a fiancé." She then took out a letter as proof. "This is a direct order from the queen. Your glares are useless." Seeing this, they could only turn and leave. However, one of the girls couldn't help but feel resentful. "Just you wait, I will definitely marry Lord Frey." Faced with Kanya's hasty actions, he immediately reminded her, "If everyone hears that rumor and swarms me, won't that be a huge hassle?" She quickly retorted, "The real hassle is your engagement to that woman Klana." Kanya's eyes drooped, her face etched with worry. "There isn't a moment she's not thinking of ways to take your life. It'll be worse if you two meet more often." In contrast to her, Frey appeared unusually calm, a calm born from his regression. "No, this situation is actually quite beneficial for me. I've been trying to figure out how to avoid Serena when she returns." Hearing this, Kanya nodded in agreement. "It's true that it would be difficult to avoid her forever when she's your fiancé." Frey smiled with satisfaction, his hand resting lightly on his chin, as if calculating something, his internal system running through the probabilities. "Exactly. That's why I'll take the Academy Library, a magnificent building with a blend of classic and modern architecture. Inside, Klana stared at the book with frustration. There's no useful information here either." She then placed the book back in its original spot, a wild idea forming in her mind. "It seems I have no choice but to go to the secret library in the royal palace." Klana quickly left the library, her face unable to hide her inner turmoil. "I can't get in there without my father's permission. What should I do? I need to investigate the oath that was used." As the premise for the engagement 1,000 years ago, back when the Demon King appeared and the first Queen Klana's ancestor created this empire with the help of two families, the Starlight family, the ones who defeated the Demon King and received overwhelming public support, and the Mole family, who have always handled the dark behind-the-scenes missions. To honor them, the Queen granted both families privileges that placed them above the law. From that point on, even the Queen could not interfere with their decisions. Thinking about this, Klana had questions but couldn't find the answers. The master-servant relationship has been merely nominal. For the past 1,000 years, the royal family has proposed cooperation with the two houses, and yet now, in order to annul the engagement, suddenly appears. Her expression darkened. What kind of oath could possibly make that feasible? Just then, Frey's voice rang out. "What are you so lost in thought about my future wife?" A familiar voice. Glana was startled and turned around to see Frey. Her expression quickly shifted to a defensive one. "You must have too much free time coming here to tease me." Hearing this, Frey became even more amused and continued, to playfully provoke Glana. "Don't glare at me like that. From now on, we'll be living together, you know." Frustrated, she turned her body, to leave. "It seems you have nothing important to say, so I'll be going." Seeing her move, Frey quickly blocked her path. "I came all this way just to see you. Can't you be a little friendlier?" With that, he didn't hesitate and went straight on to the main point. "We've both been dragged into our ancestors' romantic dispute from 1,000 years ago." Glana shot a skeptical look at Frey. You know about the second vow," he replied nonchalantly. "Of course, it's recorded in our ancient documents, a detail I remember clearly from my regression." Frey then took out a piece of paper, adding, "The story of the first queen, falling in love with the previous hero, is common knowledge, isn't it? According to the records, the queen was usurped from her position to ensure her descendants wouldn't suffer the same fate." Hearing information that was beyond her expectations, Glana shouted in outrage. "What? That's completely absurd." Even so, Frey had no intention of explaining further and just replied with an indifferent, "It is what it is." Then, he decisively tossed the paper to her. "That's everything I know. The rest has been encrypted." Afterwards, Frey waved goodbye and casually walked away. "See you at the party." At that moment, Glana angrily asked, "Are you okay?" With being forced to marry me?" His footsteps paused for a moment. Frey calmly answered her question. "In the end, it's just a political marriage. So what does it matter if the partner changes?" As he said this, the corners of his lips curved up, forming a that sly smile. But if you think about it compared to the matriarch of Malite, my system confirms that a partner with no real power like you. Frey's eyes had turned sharp as ice. He bluntly stated his thoughts. Wouldn't life be much easier having said what? Then he needed to Frey quickly departed. Don't worry, if you're obedient, I'll grant you your own freedom. Realizing she couldn't change a thing, Glana could only lower her head in helplessness. At that moment inside his head, he also had his own calculations. I've given her the hint. She's smart enough to figure out the rest on her own. The fact that the involved parties have the right to refuse this vow was not mentioned in the invitation. Frey was confident in his thoughts. She'll definitely grasp this opportunity to reject the marriage. At the same time, inside a gloomy forest, the figure of an old woman with a cane walked on the dirt path. She trudged toward a house deep within the woods. Seeing someone open the door and enter, Serena called out loudly and eagerly, "Oh my!" She covered her mouth, smiling slyly. "Hello, old witch." The old woman slowly pulled down her hood, saw her sharp eyes staring at her guest. To call the tower master of the Sunrise Empire's magic tower an old witch. She stared intently at Serena. Only you would dare, daughter of House Malite. Even so, the young lady continued to leisurely enjoy her cake. Serena gently brought a strawberry to her lips and smiled with a hidden meaning. But you prefer being called that more than Tower Master, of the Magic Tower, don't you? Hearing that the old woman could only swallow her anger and sit down. State your business. I don't have time for idle chat. Serena didn't hesitate either and got straight to the point. It's just a simple matter. She then stated her request. I want you to erase my memories. Hearing this, the woman looked at Serena startled. Then she slowly sipped her hot tea and scoffed. Even someone who has never shed blood or a single tear has memories they want to erase, so what is it you wish to forget? Serena bluntly stated her desire with a remarkably calm tone. It's not a specific memory. I want to erase all my memories from the last month. The woman's eyes widened in astonishment, her face filled with disbelief at the insane request. The woman shouted, trying to dissuade her. That's absurd. What's your purpose in doing this? Your body won't be able to handle having so much erased. Nevertheless, she remained resolute. This is absolutely necessary for me. Serena then revealed her true thoughts. I'm about to uncover the identity of the hero. I can't keep going on with these suspicions. Hearing this confession, the woman grew even more bewildered. What do you mean? Instead of answering, she continued, There's one more thing. Serena voiced an insane idea. I need you to cast a spell of absolute obedience on my man. Hearing this, the woman froze in her tracks. What did you just say? Serena's eyes began to glow, a sinister intent clear on her face. The target for the obedience is Frey Starlight, as she stated. Then Serena declared resolutely, If you refuse, I might just kill him at the party. The scene then shifts to a magnificent castle with grand European-style architecture. A maid's voice rang out, filled with excitement. Princess, you look absolutely lovely in this dress. Klana, adorned in a splendid ball gown, stared blankly at her own reflection. The maid gave her 2 thumbs up in praise. Well then, I shall take my leave. The door behind Klana quickly shut. She pressed a hand to her forehead, looking exhausted. Klana sighed in frustration. Only 6 hours left. Klana stared dejectedly at the books on her desk, the pressure mounting. I have to find a way to decipher the system's code within that time. Suddenly a shout echoed, Ah, a cat! Klana's eyes darted around, reflexively searching for it. Where did that come from? The cat appeared carrying a book. It kept meowing as if trying to point something out. Just as she suspected, her gaze quickly locked onto the book. This is... Klana hurriedly bent down and picked it up. Then, she slowly began to flip through the pages. Suddenly, Klana's eyes widened in shock, her mouth agape in disbelief at what she was reading. At the same time, the doors swung open with a blinding flash of light as an announcer eagerly introduced the acting head of the Starlight family. He bellowed excitedly, Frey Xeon Starlight is making his entrance! The moment Frey stepped inside, he immediately drew the gazes of everyone present. Noticing the wine glasses on a nearby table, he casually picked one up. Then Frey spoke, Kanya, you gave her the item, didn't you? She nodded in confirmation. Yes, I've delivered it to Klana. Hearing that, he let out a sigh of relief. The engagement with the Moonlight family is cancelled, and the marriage proposal to Klana will definitely be withdrawn too. Unlike Frey, Kanya seemed a little hesitant. I don't think you should be so certain about that. Frey's sharp eyes glinted with conviction. No, I'm positive. He glanced towards where Klana was standing and asserted, We've provided her with enough clues. This regression is our last chance, so this time I've decided to put all my faith in her. And if anything goes wrong, I can just refuse it myself. Kanya at his side looked curious. So that just leaves the agreement with the queen, doesn't it? Frey nodded. That won't be difficult to handle either. Before he could finish his sentence, then suddenly Isabel approached with a bashful expression, gently calling out to Lord Frey as a faint smile played on her lips. With a somewhat mysterious gaze, she gently brushed back her hair and spoke in a suggestive tone. May I have a moment of your time? Seeing Isabel, Frey was a bit taken aback. At that moment, a memory from his regression surfaced in his mind. She was the one who bullied Irina. Nevertheless, Frey remained polite and replied, What can I do for you? She shook her head, denying it. Oh, it's nothing, it's just, I feel sorry for you, Lord Frey. At Isabel's blunt words, a look of clear suspicion crossed his face. Sorry for me. Isabel just smirked, a challenging glint in her eyes. She glanced towards Clanna and sneered, Yes, among all the noble ladies, you were forced to marry the most disobedient one. Isabel continued her disparaging remarks without pause. Furthermore, Princess Clanna is a princess in name only. She's even beneath a rural noble. Her only saving grace, is her pretty face. Hearing this, Frey cut her off. You should watch your tongue. You never know, who might be listening. Isabel's gaze sharpened as she gave a meaningful smile. Truly a shame. She stared intently at him and then said, If it were me, the daughter of a count, I could have brought you commensurate wealth and power. Immediately after Isabel's expression shifted, she smiled gently and bowed to Frey. Well then, I hope you have a relaxing time. Watching Isabel's retreating figure, Kanya showed her disgust. Who knew someone so uniquely unpleasant existed? Frey raised his glass and slowly savored the wine. Perhaps she feels cornered. A puzzled look was clear on her face. Even so, it's not like doing that will change anything. Suddenly, Frey turned to leave. It's almost time for my appointment. I'm leaving. Kanya quickly took the wine glass from his hand, deciding to place her trust in Frey. Yes, I hope it goes smoothly. Afterward, he and Clanna passed each other without a word. She angrily took a large gulp of wine, and glared at Frey with a scowl. A short while later, a servant led him to a room. The attendant bowed respectfully. The queen will be here shortly. Please wait here. Frey looked around bewildered. This room is overwhelmingly feminine. Who decorated it? The servant quickly replied, The queen, your grace. Hearing this, he became extremely flustered, beads of sweat forming on his brow as Frey tried to make an excuse. As expected of the queen, she has great taste. Just then Lamia entered. She greeted him politely. Thank you for waiting. Duke Frey. Lamia's eyes settled on him, her face showing clear disdain. How does it feel to be a member of the royal family? Is this the reward the system promised its chosen hero? Lamia slowly sat down opposite Frey, adding, No one can I'd stand in your way anymore. He just forced a smile and replied, It's wonderful. Did the Muller family have any objections? At that question, Lamia's expression changed. Nevertheless, she managed to answer, Not at all. We showed them our utmost sincerity. At hearing that, a dreadful thought flashed through Frey's mind. They used money to solve it. If it were the old man from the Muller family, who drove me mad in my past life, it would be understandable. From what he knew 10 years ago, there might have been a rebellion within, the royal family, but now only money could make them act. At this point, Frey felt a sense of powerlessness as, he thought of Serena. Even his arranged marriage with their daughter was just for financial gain. He then, forced his expression to look as relaxed as possible. Well then, that's good. To be honest, I was quite hesitant about it all. Since I'm about to become a person of high standing, I must show my good faith. Lamia covered her mouth with her hand, the corners of her lips slowly, curling up. Suddenly, Lamia laughed excitedly. It seems you grasped the situation well, Duke Frey. He replied, humbly, It's nothing special. With that, Frey took out a piece of paper and placed it on the table. Please take a look. This is the amount, of the donation being offered in exchange for royal status. She carefully read every word, Lamia's eyes widening with excitement. 6 million gold coins, double the required fee. Seeing this, Frey quickly made a proposal. If there are no issues with the contract, then please, sign it. When faced with money, Lamia became strangely hasty. She happily nodded in agreement. All right, I also, don't like future complications. However, Lamia's gaze suddenly stopped on a specific clause. Hey, what's this about? She read it aloud with a puzzled look. Frey Theon Starlight shall not be arrested for any crime except for treason. Seeing this, he immediately explained, after the marriage, I plan to do some dirty work for the royal family, such as dealing with Her Majesty's political rivals and collecting funds. In return for getting my hands dirty, I wish to receive protection. Frey smiled with a hidden meaning. Don't you think the family should have at least one person to handle such things? Upon hearing this, Lamia's face instantly changed. She stared intently at him. How unexpected. Those are the very words I've been longing to hear. Afterwards, Frey stood up, intending to leave. He placed a hand on his chest and bowed respectfully. It would be my greatest honor to be that person. Suddenly, she spoke up. One last thing. Lamia pointed to a line on the contract. There's a confusing clause here. If the engagement is broken not by the will of Frey Theon Starlight, the donation will be considered void. Faced with her suspicion, a scenario his regression had prepared him for. Frey smoothly offered a reason. I don't expect any problems, but it's merely a precaution. Hearing that, Lamia laughed even louder. You worry, far too much, Duke Frey. With that, Lamia looked at the contract with a satisfied expression. As long as we are in agreement, then, this contract is absolute. Klana won't be able to object. At that moment, the corners of Frey's lips curled up slightly. His entire plan, guided by a hidden system, was proceeding perfectly. Frey replied cheerfully, Is that so? You needn't have been so concerned. He continued, to declare, it's truly just a precaution. Lamia, now more at ease, became incredibly enthusiastic as she followed Frey's lead. Don't worry, she said, I will ensure the donation is handled perfectly. Once everything was arranged, he quickly turned to leave. Of course, then I shall take my leave. Lamia escorted him to the door, calling after him, All right, I'll stamp it right away and send it back to you. The door quickly closed. Frey walked out with an expressionless face. A nation, ruled by those blinded by greed, is destined to fall. He then smiled with satisfaction. In any case, it's done. With this, playing the villain to set the stage for the true hero will be a bit easier. At that same moment, Klana approached Frey, speaking in a cold tone. It seems you've finished your negotiations. Klana's words were sharp, clearly referencing the deal involving her. At her sudden appearance, Frey was slightly flustered. Why is she here? Faced with Klana's sarcastic words, he quickly explained, What are you talking about? We were just discussing how to strengthen the nation. Hearing this, her face darkened, her eyes gleaming in the shadows. Klana looked at Frey with a chilling gaze. How ridiculous! You people only ever think about, satisfying your own selfish desires. She then stepped closer to him. Klana raised her voice in warning. You'd better snap out of it. Standing before Frey, she declared firmly, This won't go as you plan. With that, Klana strode past him. He watched her with feigned indifference, but inwardly he smiled smugly. It seemed she had found a way to act. A way to reject the engagement. Frey's face showed clear satisfaction mixed with a hint of excitement. It looked like his plan, born from a painful regression, was proceeding perfectly. I'll have a front row seat to watch her cause a scene. The shimmering moonlight mingled with a dreamy star-filled sky blanketing the magnificent and splendid castle. Melodious music rose and fell, accompanying the graceful and noble steps of the dancing guests. Inside the banquet hall, Kanya, standing behind him, stole a glance at Frey, who was pensively studying a stack of papers. After carefully reviewing the contents in his hands, he slowly remarked, The queen has affixed her seal with all due seriousness, so, it's guaranteed no one will suspect my role as the villain is just an act. As he finished speaking, Frey lifted his wineglass to take a sip, but she leaned in slightly and whispered, I don't see Serena anywhere. Kanya's comment immediately put the hero on alert, and Frey began scanning the area. He had heard she'd also received an invitation. Frey's gaze settled on the seats prepared for the Moonlight family. They must have declined the invitation, she mused, rubbing her chin. The head of the Moonlight family rarely attends events such as this one. Plus, with the broken engagement, it's rather understandable that Serena wouldn't feel the need to attend. Frey tensed, lowering his head slightly. Even though Kanya's analysis wasn't wrong, but he still felt there was more to it. Frey's eyes swept over the magnificent banquet hall. I just figured she'd at least show up to scout for a way to take me out. Hearing this, she couldn't help but, I'd wonder if Serena truly intended to kill him. Not only have we been unable to gather any intelligence, she said, but their side also shows no signs of making a move. What Kanya said was so accurate that Frey found it difficult to argue. In his mind, an image of Serena surfaced. Ordinarily, based on his regression knowledge, she would be aiming for his life just like everyone else. But he had a feeling that Serena was waiting to see how the situation would unfold. Hearing this, Kanya sighed and said she would stay on high alert just as someone's voice boomed calling for order. From the source of the sound, the grand doors adorned with ornate patterns swung open, revealing a blinding light from beyond. A loud voice announced, "The son of the empire is now entering." Two figures slowly emerged from the brilliant light as all the guests in the hall looked on. The two who had just appeared were none other than the emperor and queen of the empire. The instant he saw them, the look on Frey's face immediately darkened. No sooner had he arrived than Emperor Leon hastily announced to all present the betrothal of the third princess to him, explaining it was based on an oath between the first queen and that old geezer. Before he could even finish, he covered his mouth with a long yawn, utterly lacking in decorum. Immediately after, Leon casually sat on the throne, resting his chin on his hand and leaving the queen to handle the remainder of the proceedings. Lamia, ever so adept, took over for the emperor and invited the concerned parties to come forward. Upon hearing his name called, Frey flashed a meaningful smile, and at the person across from him. The next to be announced, third Princess Klana glared right back at him with a look of clear annoyance. The two of them stood facing each other. To any onlooker, they appeared to be a perfectly matched and beautiful couple. It was then that Lamia posed the critical question, "Frey von Starlight, do you consent to this betrothal?" The moment the words left her lips, he, without any hesitation, immediately dropped to one knee and answered respectfully, "I do." Immediately afterward, Frey gently took Klana's hand in his, looking up at her. With a look of deep affection, she asked, "Will you marry me?" The queen then pressed on, "Do you agree?" But this time, her expression was filled with mockery and smugness. In stark contrast to Frey's feigned happiness, she gritted her teeth and enunciated every word. Just as predicted, Klana forcefully snatched her hand away from him and shouted, boldly rejecting the marriage proposal. As soon as she finished speaking, the expressions of everyone in the hall were incredibly varied. Some were shocked, some intrigued, while others remained utterly indifferent. Clearly, Lamia had not anticipated this. Shocked, she pointed a finger at Klana's face and demanded, "Do you think you have the right to do that?" But she remained completely unfazed. Klana slowly recited the second pact between the first queen and the Starlight family. Her eyes were filled with resolve. A marriage cannot be formed without the consent of the two parties involved. After speaking, Klana immediately turned her head, seeking confirmation from her father. Observing the scene before him, the old man opened one eye, deep in thought. "This is getting interesting." Lacan evasively claimed he thought the two of them had already agreed, and this was just a formality. But his daughter immediately refuted him, stating that it was because no one realized she possessed the right to veto. Hearing this, Lacan began to shift the blame to the trembling Lamia beside him. "It seems the queen was too busy and forgot that she needed your consent." Ultimately, he had to concede that the marriage was invalid because Klana had refused it. When Lacan asked for his opinion, Frey didn't answer but just stood up somberly. When no one was looking, he quietly smirked, as if this was the moment his regression had been leading up to. Immediately after, to everyone's astonishment, Frey put on a show of being utterly heartbroken, crying his heart out as if he couldn't accept this reality. A few crocodile tears fell from the corners of his eyes. "My heart is about to shatter from the pain of this rejection." However, under Klana's disgusted gaze, Frey took his performance even further, declaring that he would reluctantly let go so that his first love could find true happiness. Seeing this, the emperor burst out laughing cheerfully. "What a surprise! To think you have such a magnanimous side. I'm sure you're not happy, but I'm glad you're so understanding." Frey immediately bowed respectfully. Following that, Lacan raised his glass, apologized to the guests, and smoothed over the tense atmosphere. A while later, once the party was lively again, Lamia hastily rushed down the stairs. Gritting her teeth, she ran like the wind, completely disregarding her image as she cursed at Klana, calling her a wench. Lamia furiously pointed at her and berated her. "I told you if this marriage falls through, I would marry you off." But Klana didn't back down and threatened her right back. Just as the atmosphere grew as tense as a drawn bowstring, Frey let out a soft cough, interrupting them. The two women stared in shock as the cunning hero suddenly approached. "Your Majesty, I must take my leave, but..." Seeing Frey hint at withdrawing his donation, Lamia immediately panicked and tried to placate him to make him stay. But before she could finish her excuses, Frey cheerfully bid her farewell, not forgetting to keep the immunity rights they had agreed upon. As soon as he finished, Klana, in disbelief, immediately questioned why Lamia would give away something as important as immunity rights to him. Hearing the loud argument between the two behind him, Frey flashed a triumphant smile, as if a mission in his grand system had just been completed. "I thought this would be a hassle, But it turns out it was a highly productive party after all. He put his hands in his pockets, silently celebrating the freedom of no longer having a fiancé when a voice rang out. "What a pity, Sir Frey." Isabel smirked, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. "This is why I advised you not to marry that tomboyish woman." Recognizing her, he silently clicked his tongue in annoyance. This woman was always a wild card. Having learned her lesson only to see Isabel draw near and whisper in Frey's ear, attempting to belittle the princess while elevating her own worth. However, contrary to her expectations, he waved her away. Frey shot her a contemptuous glare. "You make me sick," he sneered, a delusional woman with intentions as clear as day. These words instantly enraged Isabel. Pointing a finger at his face, she stammered, "What did you just say?" She tried to shout more, but Frey cut her off. "Are you deaf? You're a nuisance with a deplorable personality." He pointed a finger toward the ground, his eyes looking at her as if she were a filthy bug. "Get lost and don't ever show your face to me again." With that, Frey turned and walked away, ignoring Isabel's indignant screams. Shouting after him, "How dare you insult me like that? Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you're the Duke's son? Just because you have a pretty face?" Hearing her shrill insults, he merely muttered indifferently, "What an insufferable woman." Frey quickly made his way to where Kanya was standing and called out to her, but he was met with Kanya's utterly horrified expression. "We're in trouble." He was taken aback by her expression, not understanding what was happening, as Kanya hurriedly and respectfully handed him a letter. A mysterious letter." She hesitated, unsure how to explain properly. Finally, Kanya stammered that Serena had come by a short while ago, and given her this letter. As Frey read the contents, his face grew visibly pale because inside it was written, "Come, shy to the garden at once, or I will kill you right here." Shimmering moonlight illuminated the quiet garden. The moment he saw the familiar silhouette of Serena, Frey immediately called her name. Upon hearing his voice, Serena instantly turned around, greeting him with a hint of shyness. Frey kept his distance, watching her warily. "What do you want? We're not engaged anymore." Serena stepped closer, explaining she had been so forceful to ensure he would come. As Serena drew nearer and nearer, Frey instinctively raised his hands in a defensive gesture, but she was quickly in front of him, coldly raising her fan. "I know we are strangers now." Frey stared tensely at Serena as she said she had decided to help him. Serena raised her fan, hiding a cryptic smile. "Though I'm not sure how to be the hero you might need, since I've lost my memories. I only know about the balls and the broken engagement through notes, almost like a quest log from a quantum system. But besides those," before she could finish her sentence, Frey hastily cut in, confused by what Serena was saying. He only saw her give a playful wink, guessing he was curious about the party. Frey impatiently stammered in immediate denial. Seeing this, Serena instantly realized he wanted to talk about the lost memories. Frey confirmed it through gritted teeth. Talking to Serena always made him feel like he was losing his mind. She turned slightly, explaining that her memories of an entire month of travel had been erased by magic. Frey immediately cut to the chase. "Who did it?" As the words left his mouth, Serena suddenly blushed, turning away bashfully to admit that she was the one who did it. With each step, her wooden clogs made a pleasant clicking sound. "I asked the Tower Master to do it," Serena enunciated slowly, but while looking at Frey with an enigmatic gaze, admitting she had the Tower Master cast absolute obedience magic on herself with him as the target. These words instantly left Frey feeling as if he'd been turned to stone. "What did you just say?" He couldn't help but yell, questioning her. But Serena just calmly stated she did it to save Frey, a desperate move that required a true hero's sacrifice by using both the obedience magic and memory erasure on myself simultaneously. "It's highly probable that my journey, this whole memory regression, is connected to you." Hearing about this connection, at him, puzzled, he asked again, and she smirked in confirmation. "Although I'm not certain about what I saw at the ruins." The moment Serena mentioned the ruins, Frey was stunned. Could she have read about it? There were many ruins of the hero scattered across the world. They contained records of the hero's true identity and the punishments issued by the system. He was sure, and that no one could read them because they were written in Kana. Could she have understood it through context and deduced it herself? A shocking truth dawned on Frey. Is it possible that Serena truly discovered who I am and erased her own memories? So I wouldn't receive punishment. Thinking this, he looked up at the young woman, happily admiring the flowers. Even though he knew there was a genius, Frey never imagined it was to this extent. Just then, Serena suddenly smiled. "I've decided not to think too much about it." She pulled out her fan. Because I might remember something if I do. Hearing this, he lowered his head slightly. And let out a sigh. A moment later, Frey looked up. I understand the situation, but there's no reason for you to help me. As soon as he finished, Serena immediately retorted. She gave a heart-flutteringly cute wink and spoke words of affection to Frey. And if you're a piece of trash, I'll still adore you. Serena's words once again left him frozen in astonishment. Before Frey could recover, she had already turned to leave. Contact me whenever you need help. With that, Serena walked away, leaving him staring in bewilderment. Watching her retreating back, Frey felt as if he had just been played. He gave a forced, helpless smile, resting his forehead in his hand. Maybe I should look at this more positively. The whole point of my regression is to use every advantage. If I can use the power of Serena along with the superior information network and manpower of the Mole family, if I leverage that along with the immunity I've collected. Frey carefully calculated the benefits. At this thought, he looked up, watching the flower petals dance in the moonlight. I'll be able to complete the first main quest without any trouble. This is such a headache. A disgruntled mumble was heard along with the sound of a staff tapping the ground. The Tower Master, leaning on her staff, grumbled, making this Tower Master do such menial tasks. If it weren't for my disciple, she muttered, grinding her teeth. Just then a voice offering bread was heard. Looking down, she saw Baita, a child holding up a basket of bread. She immediately tried to shoo her away, but the little girl looked up with pitiful, sparkling eyes. Miss Tower Master, are you too busy to even have time for some bread? But those eyes had no effect on her. The Tower Master waved her hand dismissively. Hearing the words Tower Master Gull seemed very curious, not understanding what it meant. The woman lifted her chin arrogantly. I sensed a large amount of magical power in this area, so I came to investigate. Of course, the little girl didn't understand what magical power was either, finding gold too bothersome. The Tower Master tossed out a single gold coin to get rid of her. Gull was immediately thrilled. Thank you. She even offered to use magic to help her with something, but the Tower Master didn't believe her at all, thinking the girl was a liar because she couldn't sense any magical power from her. Hearing this, Glee quickly held out her hand. A magic circle appeared and the little girl's entire body was enveloped by light as dazzling streams of energy continuously swirled around Gull. The little girl hurriedly tried to prove she wasn't lying, but this sight made the Tower Master's eyes widen and her jaw drop in amazement. It was only then that she realized with a start that the massive amount of magical power was coming from this very child. With that thought, the Tower Master hastily cast a spell. In the blink of an eye, she had transported Gull to an unfamiliar place, startling and frightening the little girl. The Tower Master paid no mind, excitedly gripping Gull's shoulders and asking for her name. Right after that, without even asking for the little girl's opinion, I directly decided that from now on, GL would be my disciple under the scorching sun. Amidst the clear blue sky, the little girl's young and somewhat bewildered voice rang out. Meanwhile, in a dark and eerie place, a figure was sitting on the highest throne. The Demon King smirked grimly. I'm sick and tired of being stuck here because of this punishment. From outside the window, a black crow with blood-red eyes flapped its wings and flew in. It landed on the windowsill and spoke respectfully. My lord, you called for me. The Demon Queen smirked, saying she wanted to begin preparations. It's also time to make use of the commoner's dormitory. Then we will take advantage of the chaos and have the demon army infiltrate the empire. The crow subordinate immediately accepted the order. Then I will go find an attacker. Hearing this, she was very pleased, smirking and humming softly in agreement. The Demon Queen raised 3 fingers, representing 3 criteria: arrogance, jealousy, and possessing strong negative emotions. Someone like that is easier to control, and the effects of dark magic will be even stronger. The crow immediately confirmed its understanding and prepared to search the academy, but the Demon Queen also wanted it to take something with it. She held out a necklace radiating dark energy. Wear this and no one will be able to discover your identity. Looking at her subordinate with the necklace around its neck, the Demon Queen looked on with great satisfied anticipation. She flashed a savage smile. How will the hero fight in his first mission? In a magnificent and splendid castle, Kana's voice rang out. Young master, what are you thinking about? Frey rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I'm planning for the future. I think we should accumulate as much power as possible. He lowered his eyes, calculating. Hearing this, she immediately understood it was a plan for the attack and its aftermath, likely informed by his regression. But Frey turned to look at Kana seriously. You don't need to worry so much about the cleanup. He gestured to some papers on the table. After this incident, Frey planned to use the rumors spread by the people to enhance his reputation as a fake villain because he had an ace up his sleeve. We will focus all our manpower on finding the culprit. Kana completely agreed with this line of thinking. But what if we can't find them? She asked. Hearing this, Frey just shook his head and smiled. Oh, we'll definitely find them. In the Book of Prophecy, it's written that this Gada can pinpoint the exact location of a demon. It is a very special item. No matter how much magic a demon uses to conceal itself, this item will inevitably track it down. Frey pointed his index finger and concluded, perhaps the only way to fight a system is with another system salt. And I am the only white hero who possesses one. At this, Kana realized they would certainly find the culprit. Frey casually shrugged to reassure her, don't worry about finding him. Before he could finish, Serena opened the door and strode in, making them both jump. Good morning, everyone! Good morning. Seeing her, Kana's face darkened with anger as she demanded to know why Serena would enter someone else's room without knocking or asking for permission. Not one to back down, Serena laughed mockingly. Do I need permission to enter my own fiancé's room? Serena then ignored Kana's shouts that the engagement was annulled and calmly walked further inside, even turning the tables by questioning the two of them being alone in a room together in broad daylight. Watching this unfold, Frey could only press his hand to his forehead and sigh. And she said she would only come when called. Hasn't she just shown up on her own? Suddenly, Serena called out Kana's name, her tone full of hidden meaning. She stared grimly at Kana as if trying to bore a hole through her with her gaze. And what reason do you have to be here? A confused Kana reiterated that she was the butler, but Serena cut her off. Are you sure you won't use your position as a butler to plot something? Something to harm Frey. Upon hearing that, Kanya's expression turned cold as she asserted she would never do such wrongful things. Serena didn't respond, merely gazing at her thoughtfully for a long moment. After a while, she determined that Kanya's resolute gaze didn't seem to be a lie. With that thought, Serena turned to Frey. This butler? You can trust him. He was still a bit bewildered, but politely thanked her. However, as it happened, Frey also had a favor to ask of Serena. She immediately adopted a sarcastic tone. Did the sun rise in the west today or something? You actually need my help. He replied grimly and reminded her that he had a request for her. Before I give you this mission, you must doubt the words I am about to speak. Frey looked up seriously, emphasizing every word. Her eyes immediately glazed over as if hypnotized, and she obediently agreed. Seeing this, he felt more at ease. This way I don't have to worry about the penalty being applied. The system penalty. It wouldn't be applied if it was merely suspicion or judgment like that time with Kanya. The main activation condition is absolute certainty. With that thought, Frey produced a scroll. Take this. It's what I need you to do for me. Seeing it was just a map of the commoner dormitory area, Serena was immediately puzzled. He explained it was a tool for detecting the location of demons. Frey, armed with knowledge from his regression, revealed they were planning an attack on the commoner dormitories. He requested that she deploy people from the Molan family to protect and monitor the dorms. For Serena, this was a surprisingly simple task which made her a bit suspicious. Frey's expression instantly turned cold. This is an order. Don't ask unnecessary peripheral questions. Upon hearing that, Serena was once again mesmerized, obediently complying. Finally, he carefully instructed her that if anything seemed unusual, she was to report it to them immediately. A moment later, Serena lingered, clinging to the doorframe to say her goodbyes before leaving. She playfully teased Frey with a blushing face, telling him she loved him. The atmosphere suddenly became incredibly awkward, but Frey helplessly put his hand to his forehead at a loss for words. Kanya looked quite concerned by Serena's perplexing behavior, but he had complete trust in her abilities. Now we just wait for news from her. Frey smirked, pleased. The sunset cast a glow over the large estate, making it seem incredibly peaceful. But on the rooftops, ninjas were already standing guard. In one corner, two more stood together ready for battle. Below, other ninjas patrolled with lightning-fast speed. A moment later, a subordinate came to report to Serena that all positions were secured, leaving her very satisfied. Seeing that everything seemed perfectly normal, Serena became thoughtful. The subordinate quickly reassured her, saying they had brought in demon specialists who could apprehend any threats the moment they appeared. Hearing this, Serena felt somewhat relieved. The female subordinate then quickly excused herself and teleported back to her post. After she was gone, Serena looked at the paper with a cryptic smile. There are 6 places I need to check personally. While she was focused on the paper high above in a corner, one of the Demon King's minions was secretly observing Serena. It quietly assessed her as she excitedly added a few more locations to her checklist. In the end, the crow-like subordinate determined that Serena was unsuitable as it couldn't sense any intense emotions from her. The Demon King had instructed them to find an attacker with intense emotions and a complex psyche, the perfect vessel to stand against the prophesied hero. The chosen one had to be someone who could unleash the full potential of dark power to break the Demon King's seal, someone powerful enough to draw a massive magic formation. Throughout the commoner's dormitory, the sharp clap of stomping high heels echoed, instantly drawing the attention of the Demon King's subordinate. The one approaching was none other than Isabel, furiously cursing Frey as a scoundrel. Her face twisted grotesquely as she recalled being publicly humiliated the day before. That guy thinks he can get away with anything just because he's handsome. I'll definitely find his weakness and make him realize that messing with me was a huge mistake. The dark aura accumulating around Isabel caught the eye of a black crow. Its eyes flashed with excitement as if it had discovered a treasure. There she is, the one I've been looking for. With that thought, the Demon King's subordinate immediately flapped its wings, sending jet black feathers scattering everywhere. Spreading its wings, it followed Isabel's enraged footsteps. Before long, the black crow caught up, hovering directly above her head. A bewildered Isabel looked up to see its jet black feathers raining down. A single feather gently touched her shoulder, and instantly, a surge of dark energy radiated out from Isabel. Suddenly, an immense source of power appeared, merging with the dark aura. Reflected in the blood-red eyes of the Demon King's subordinate, her own gaze turned vacant. "You will answer my question, villain." The crow's entire body seemed to merge with the dark aura enveloping it. "Who are you?" Isabel responded robotically. "I am a servant of the Demon King. As he commands, I will attack the dormitory." As the dark, chilling voice echoed, it was also the moment the dormitory was about to face a great peril. Early the next morning, as the sun rose, Kana's voice rang out, "Here's your coffee." "Young master." Frey accepted the coffee, savoring it. "It's been a while since we've had a quiet morning like this," he remarked. She agreed. "It's true, there have been so many incidents lately." He turned to Kana with a bright smile and asked, "Would you like to go for a walk later? I know I've put you through a lot. I'd like to buy you something and get a meal together." Seeing Kana look dejected, Frey quickly added, "Of course, I don't expect that to make up for everything." But, in truth, she was flustered and shy. "Wait, is this a date?" Kana stammered, Well, we don't know what might happen, so I was thinking somewhere nearby." Suddenly, Serena burst through the door, panting as she reported to Frey, "There's a suspicious amount of magical energy flowing out of the commoner's lodging area." Frey and Kana's jaws dropped, staring at each other in astonishment. Frey had no choice but to say to Kana, "I guess we'll have to postpone this." They all headed to a lodging house filled with a murderous aura. The Shanto system issued a new mission and objective. Frey assessed the situation internally. The system has given a mission, which means there's... He spoke aloud. "This magical power is incredible. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to withstand it." Serena stammered, "That's why we had to pull back." A flash of memory from his regression hit Frey, and he asked her, "What exactly happened?" Serena replied, "We didn't let up our surveillance and the reconnaissance devices detected nothing." Frey offered his insight, but this morning, a malevolent magic suddenly began to pour out from inside. Could a noble student have gone in? Serena was slightly confused. "A noble? Why would you suddenly bring that up?" Frey clicked his tongue internally, regretting his slip-up. "This is bad. I was too careless. As a hero, I should have warned them that the culprit was a noble, but I was being overly cautious." He then wondered, but why didn't the reconnaissance device activate? "I'll think about that later. For now, handling this situation is the priority." Kana said with concern, "Young master, you should investigate properly before taking action." Frey cut her off. "There's no time. We're going in to capture the culprit. Once we find them, we can use this to take control." Kana was astonished. "That's the domination stone." Frey replied, "I don't think there will be any issues, but I brought it just in case. If I capture them and say that it was my order..." Before he could finish, Kanya called out, "Young master!" Frey immediately pulled Kanya and Serena into the bushes to hide. Serena asked, puzzled, "Frey, what are you doing all of a sudden?" Frey raised a finger to his lips, signaling for silence as the footsteps of three newcomers approached. Their steps were quick and urgent. Fochi spoke up, "We're close now. I can clearly feel the sinister presence." But Irina, already aware, urged them on. "The people inside are in danger. We have to do something to save them." Hiding nearby, Frey was baffled. "I get why Irina, who lives here, is present, but why are Klana and Fochi also with her? Have the three of them formed some kind of bond I'm unaware of?" Frey gritted his teeth. "Everything since my regression has become unpredictable." Serena, still confused, asked, Frey, can you explain? I don't even know what to do. Frey quickly instructed Kanya. Cast a recognition blocking spell. Don't let anyone get near. Serena clenched her teeth, annoyed at being ignored by him. Serena stood up, creating a gust of wind with a flick of her fan. She spoke confidently to Frey. I can do that as well. In fact, I've already ensured no one can get close. So tell me, what exactly are you planning to do? Frey remained silent, a plan already forming in his mind. What am I planning? In this situation, as soon as I find the attackers, I'll use the domination stone to mind control them. Then I'll reveal myself as the one behind this and, complete the system mission. It will cause a huge commotion, but with my immunity from arrest and enough money, I can easily, cover it up. But explaining all that would be a waste of time. Giving them orders is much faster. Frey came up with an answer. I'm going inside now to find the source of the magic. Don't overthink it, just assist me. Serena covered her mouth with her fan. As you command. Her eyes showed absolute certainty. Frey raised his hand, generating a surge of power. He made his decision. All right then. Let's settle this. The three of them walked to the door but suddenly stopped, hesitating. Abruptly, Kanya screamed, causing Frey to whip his head around. Young master, watch out! A massive monster had appeared behind him, poised to strike. The monster's claws were nearly upon Frey's face. He angrily reached for his sword. Damn it, are we too late? Suddenly, Serena appeared before him. Like a true hero, she used her fan to block the monster's attack. Seizing the opening, she sent the creature flying. The monster crashed into a wall in full view of two other monsters. Those two creatures prepared to attack Serena, but she gave them no opportunity, striking first. Serena generated a current of power that shot toward them slowly. The energy wrapped around the two monsters' necks. Serena manipulated the power, tightening it around their throats. Just like that, in an instant, she had taken down all the monsters. Frey was inwardly astonished. That ability is incredible. With that alone, I'm truly glad she's on our side. If she were an enemy, she'd be an absolute nightmare to deal with. Then suddenly, he noticed something on the ground. Frey looked at the symbol, guessing, is this graffiti? Serena also sensed a chilling magical aura emanating from it. Kanya opened the door, calling to Frey and interrupting his curiosity about the drawing. Young master, in here. Frey followed her inside and froze, his eyes widening in shock. He looked at the people lying on the floor. Aren't these the inn manager and the maids? Kanya nodded. It seems they've been put to sleep by magic. Frey observed the manager and the maids, then gave Kanya an order. Trying to enter their subconscious, Kanya followed the hero's instructions, but she suddenly discovered something and told Frey, something is blocking me, I can't get in, he exclaimed. What? When it comes to subconscious magic, no one is better than Kanya. A strong will can resist the intrusion, but to block the entrance completely should be impossible. Frey's face darkened. Even Foshi or the master of the magic tower couldn't do this. Not even anyone in the Demon Lord's army has this ability. Then a thought he hadn't expected crossed his mind. Wait, could it be? Frey hesitated, lost in thought from his regression. Is it possible the Demon Lord is also involved? Kanya asked anxiously. At the mention of this Demon Lord, Frey nodded. However, the ones who actually carried this out are most likely high-ranking generals borrowing the Demon Lord's power. He rested his chin on his hand, pondering. But would the Demon Lord really need to attack a civilian dormitory like this? I'm not getting anywhere just thinking about it. First, I have to deal with the immediate problem. Suddenly, Serena burst in from outside, breathlessly calling for Frey. She reported, catching her breath. I did a quick scout around. Something isn't right. Monsters are popping up like mushrooms after the rain. But there hasn't been a single casualty. It looks like someone is controlling them. It's possible that person is the... Before Serena could finish her sentence, Frey figured it out. The mastermind of the attack. She nodded, exactly. Then Serena asked, there's more. Do you remember that graffiti from before? Frey spoke up. I remember. What about it? She replied. It's drawn all over the place from the first to the third floor. This means this entire dormitory has been completely enveloped by a massive magic circle, a kind of spell system. Frey was stunned. A magic circle that uses living people, that appears with the Demon Lord's army, so this place has been turned into a sacrificial altar. The Book of Prophecies mentioned it, but the details were vague, so I'd forgotten in this life. It's a support circle for the main sacrificial circle. There must be another circle with its own distinct mechanism, just like the one I saw that succubus queen use, and its core must be in a place where magic can be unleashed en masse. Frey figured it's most likely on the top floor. The mastermind must be there too. I have to get to the top floor, catch the culprit, and shatter the spell formation. Otherwise, everyone will be sacrificed. Deep inside the dormitory, Isabel stood in the middle of the magic circle, controlled and turned into a mindless vessel. The demon lord's subordinate standing nearby said confidently, "Choosing this woman as the vessel was truly a wise decision. The more negative emotions she has, the faster the process will be completed. At this rate, it'll all be over in another half an hour." The hero Frey stepped in from outside, drew his sword and spoke, "So out of everyone you chose Isabel to be the host. Well, she does hate me to the point of madness. For you, she's truly," Frey said, slashing directly at the magic formation, "a perfect pawn." But Isabel emerged completely unharmed. Frey clicked his tongue, raising his voice. "Was that still not enough to take you down?" The demon lord's subordinate floated behind Isabel and mocked him. "Fool, did you really think it would be that easy? It's not bad that you discovered my true form, but," it roared while directing Isabel to attack, "what good will that knowledge do you?" Serena dashed in front of Frey to block the blow for him. Isabel shrieked and quickly leaped back a distance, stunned by the unexpected interception. Serena landed gently and said to Frey with confidence, "Leave this to us." Kanya chimed in, "You go deal with that crow thing." Reassured, Frey rested his sword on his shoulder. "Got it. I'm counting on you both." At the same time, they summoned their magic to attack Isabel, who under control cast her own spell to counter their assault. Frey casually approached the Demon King's subordinate with his sword. He smirked sinisterly. "Hey, you crow, you said you were the only one here, right?" The Demon King's subordinate grew anxious, thinking, "Damn it, this guy has allies. But this isn't over yet. If I can just control that guy's mind." With that thought, it lunged at Frey, roaring, "Obediently become my puppet." But he calmly pulled out a stone. "However, I'm 100% sure the winner will be me." The stone in the young hero's hand began, and reveal its power. He gloated, "Because I have this." The stone's power began to assault the Demon King's subordinate, causing it to panic. Impossible. It began to feel unwell, its mind growing hazy as it realized, "My consciousness is fading away." The Demon King's subordinate staggered in midair before plummeting to the ground. Frey pocketed the stone and stared down at the crow. He clicked his tongue in disdain. "So weak, yet you tried to pick a fight. Turns out when the manipulator loses consciousness, the brainwashing spell just disappears." Kanya was a little panicked as the battle dragged on. Serena commented, "The attacks were too predictable, but the hidden power, behind them is no joke." Frey chuckled. "Glad I could wrap that up quickly." Just then a voice called out, "Frey, what are you doing here?" Glana stepped out, her face filled with suspicion. "Don't tell me you're the culprit, are you?" Arena gritted her teeth. "Do you even have to ask? Of course he's the mastermind." Fochi began to chant, "Oh sun god, please, grant me the strength to punish this sinner." Frey thought with annoyance. "My regression taught me that things never go this smoothly for long. Of all the times to show up, it had to be now." Glana cleared her throat and asked, "And why are Serena and Kanya with you?" Kanya answered awkwardly, "We sensed something suspicious emanating from the dorms, so we came to check it out." "And then," she yelled, pointing at Frey, "we caught this degenerate freak here." Inwardly, Kanya was screaming non-stop, "Please, young master, spare me." Serena rushed to shield Frey. "Wait a minute, Frey isn't a bad person. He's been trying to find and eliminate the real mastermind this whole time." Suddenly, Serena grew flustered. "Or is he? Wait, what was the reason Frey was here again?" Frey realized something was off. They're falling into a state of tension. The more they think, the more contradictions will pop up. I need to turn this situation around before they start asking more strange questions. Assuming I run now and turn myself in later, the system would still register the mission as complete. However, the main problem is, that sacrificial magic circle. I'm the only one who knows how to disable it. If anyone else makes a mistake, it'll all turn into a major disaster. If only this authority stone didn't have a usage limit. If I could just control them, I could just order them to destroy it and be done with this. The stone in Frey's hand began to radiate a furious purple light, and it started to crack. Frey felt a bit of regret, but this was the only way. The stone's power enveloped everyone and began to affect, the previously unconscious subordinate of the Demon King, and it was also influencing the other monsters. The stone's power, Finn had enveloped the entire dormitory. Fochi panicked. "What was that light just now?" Arena raged. "That bastard is summoning, his minions. They're heading this way." Controlled by the stone's power, the Demon King's subordinate flew up and hovered over Frey's head. He smirked. "If I force the authority stone into a berserk state, I can temporarily suppress the minds of those who have lost their consciousness." Behind Frey, the floor shattered and a massive monster erupted from below. Frey thought to himself, laughing while they were distracted by the monsters. I'll pretend to be manipulated by this crow, Frey thought, then shouted in an arrogant tone, foolish humans become a sacrifice for the Demon King? At that, the party's designated hero Glana didn't hesitate to confront him. So you've finally revealed, Shipless, your true colors. Kania spoke up. He's deceiving everyone. Wait, doesn't this seem strange to you? Is Frey really this bold? He is always a cunning and insidious villain. Frey inwardly praised her. Excellent, Kania. That's a perfect way to support me. I'll just let Kania do the explaining and focus on my acting. He made the Demon King's subordinate speak. It's useless, he is under my complete control. Kania yelled, that crow is controlling Frey. Fochi agreed. I can feel the overwhelming demonic energy. Glana's face darkened as she made a quick decision. Everyone get ready. We'll determine if he's being controlled or not after we take him down. Frey inwardly smirked. Right on schedule. All right, bring it on, while I'm holding them off. I just need to secretly destroy the magic circle. Frey directed a monster to attack the group. Fochi unleashed her power, punching it in the face, but more monsters swarmed in. On the defensive, she told Glana, there are too many monsters. Glana devised another plan. Then let's aim for Frey and the crow, Kania warned. If the host dies, there's no telling what will happen to the magic circle, so don't kill him. Glana looked confused. Then can't we just destroy the magic circle? Arena immediately objected. I'm against that. A magic circle of that complexity is extremely fragile. If we're not careful, it could go out of control. Looking slightly annoyed, Glana said, then we have no other choice. Fochi and I will hold Frey down. In the meantime, you two deal with the monsters. With that, the two of them charged at Frey without a moment's hesitation. However, he skillfully dodged all their attacks. As Frey laughed and swung his sword, Fochi appeared right in front of him, magic concentrating into her fist. Simultaneously, Frey blocked the blow with his sword and effortlessly sent Fochi flying several yards away. The magical power of her attack was slightly weakened, leaving her exhausted. Frey sighed in relief. Good, no one is reckless enough to touch the magic circle. Thanks to my regression, I know that if they're not, it will detonate instantly. I'm the only one who knows the specific system to safely dismantle it. But if they don't attack from a distance, it'll be difficult to destroy it secretly. Suddenly, another attack struck near Frey, interrupting his thoughts. Frey couldn't help but feel bewildered looking around. What was that? That attack came from a perfect angle and had just the right amount of power. He glanced over and was surprised to see Serena. Serena? Her power should be far more devastating than this. Serena shyly covered her mouth with her fan and whispered, I don't know the details. She then winked at Frey. But I'll follow your lead for now. Frey was inwardly astonished. She noticed the inconsistencies in my act. How perceptive, in any case, this will only help my plan proceed more smoothly. Glana prepared another attack, shouting, Surrender, Frey! As the proclaimed hero launched her assault, Frey glanced behind him. There's only one way to destroy the magic circle without side effects. I have to infuse my own magic one with an attribute that's the polar opposite of the demon's to neutralize it right before it. That should be enough. Once it's triggered, it will simply vanish. The Demon King's subordinate sneered, You fools! Do you really think you can stop this self-destruct magic with such a commonplace attack? Glana urged. We have to stop him, Kania responded. Most of the monsters have been eliminated. I'll support everyone now. Fochi added, Then just buy me a little time to recover. I'll be back at full strength as fast as I can. Perhaps Arena, panting behind him, suddenly realized something. Frey smirked to himself. All right, while their attack is... I paused for a moment. Suddenly, an unexpected pain struck him, causing his eyes to widen. Frey abruptly coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood. He knelt on the ground, furious. Damn it, my body won't move at the most critical moments, Fochi warned. Stay alert. This could be an act to make us lower our guard. Klena stood before Frey, confident that, don't worry, in a fight I'm faster than him, Frey reassured himself. It's fine. If I use all my mana, I can still activate the spell. I'll be drained and bedridden for a few days, but Kania can handle the rest. Frey suddenly burst into an eerie laugh, startling Klana. Faster than me! Suddenly, a notification from his system announced a power-up and his strength surged. Catching Klana completely off guard. The Force Center flying. Frey laughed arrogantly. The magic circle is complete. He laughed maniacally, unrestrained. Now all of you will become sacrifices for the Demon King. And... A worried Fochi repeatedly shouted, Stop it, Frey! but he seemed to be at the peak of his spell, yelling back, "Two, oh, late." Following that was a massive explosion and the entire hall filled with smoke. Klana's group gaped in utter shock. Klana panicked. The spell definitely activated, so why didn't anything happen? Fochi was also confused. The magic circle has vanished. Serena slowly walked over to the site of the explosion. She knelt to inspect it. It seems the spell, went out of control and failed. Kanya sighed, inwardly relieved. "Well done, young master. Leave the rest to me." She then pretended to, and say to everyone, "It looks like he passed out after it failed. Let's capture him while we can." Fochi hesitated slightly. "Actually, I think we're done here," Glana agreed. "Even if he's corrupt, he's still a descendant of the hero, a troublesome one at that." Fochi was still confused. But why did it fail? Glana didn't know either. Who knows? At one point, the demonic energy suddenly weakened. Perhaps Frey used up all his strength. Fochi thought so too, possessing the Demon King's power in a human body is no easy feat. Kanya feigned concern. "In any case, we should hurry and get him to a hospital. We'll wait for him to wake up." Serena ignored everyone, ran to Frey and hugged him, crying, "Frey, please, wake up." Kanya's heart pounded as she watched Serena, not understanding what was happening. Glana was stunned into silence. Arena and Fochi looked slightly terrified, unable to utter a single word. To explain this, we must be taken back 10 minutes before the chaos erupted. A stream of memories flooded Irina's mind. She recalled the first time she met Frey wearing a mask and thought, "There were too many strange things about Leon when I met him in the Grey Forest." She remembered his voice always. It sounded incredibly rushed. He also used being sick as an excuse to always wear a mask, and that person even knew about the Azure Ice Dragon. It was something only Arena and Frey knew. For a long time, she had thought Leon was Frey, but during their time fighting, as side by side, she had quickly dismissed that thought. This sudden personality change was like a total regression to a stranger. Arena kept recalling the unpleasant moments between her and Frey, and she affirmed to herself, "There's no way that bastard would help me." But now Arena was utterly astonished by the scene unfolding before her. Frey was standing in front of her, sword in hand, fighting and shouting, "If you kneel, I will consider welcoming you into the Demon King's army." Seeing Frey's current state, she was reminded of the identity he fought so hard to conceal. Frey's other persona, only this one was protecting her. Arena looked around and discovered something as the mana began to glow. When it touched the defensive magic circle, her power immediately weakened. At that moment, Frey flashed a triumphant smile as he radiated an incredibly powerful aura and shouted, "Now you will all be sacrifices for the Demon King." Everyone tried to stop him, but it was too late. Arena could only stand aside, trying to dodge the surge of power. She was utterly stunned by what happened next. A massive explosion sent dust and smoke billowing everywhere. Finally, Arena could slowly see what had happened. Suddenly, her eyes widened in surprise. It turned out Frey was lying convulsing on the floor. Everyone wanted to know what had occurred. Soren went over to examine him and concluded, "It seems the magic circle went out of control and was destroyed." Immediately, the onlookers began to buzz with discussion about the incident. When Arena heard Klana say that everything had been fine just moments before and that the magic had suddenly vanished, she was astonished and asked herself, could it be he destroyed the magic circle himself? She recalled that just as Frey began to unleash his power, the magic circles were being erased by his own offensive magic. At this point, Irina came to her own conclusion. She was certain that Frey had stopped the magic circle's activation and saved everyone here. But then Irina stood in a corner pondering, why would he do that? She grew even more curious. If so, then Frey really is Leon. But why would he hide his identity like that? Suddenly, a loud scream echoed throughout the school. The faces of the onlookers grew tense. Serena was cradling the fallen Frey, sobbing hysterically. Arena, lost in the crowd with a deeply worried expression, wondered why Frey had suddenly started coughing up blood. Meanwhile, in another place called the Demon King's Castle, the atmosphere was incredibly gloomy. The Demon King sat comfortably on the throne inside the castle, looking at the system panel and scoffing, "Mission failed. So, does this mean I've lost a complete regression in my plans? Does this mean I still can't leave the Demon King's castle?" But then the Demon King brushed it off. "Well, I've only just gotten started anyway." She began to complain. "But how much longer do I have to be stuck here? You're the one who told me I had to prioritize the system's orders and fight the hero, right? And in the end, I'm the only one who gets locked up in here." With that, the Demon King declared, "This is so unfair. If I could get out, I wouldn't do things half-heartedly, like just sending my subordinates. But the truth is, I still can't go there directly. She wondered. Something that suddenly appeared and started giving me orders must have a lot of restrictions. Hearing this, the system replied, if you had gone all out, the hero would have stood no chance. Then the system announced that the clone skill had been unlocked. Hearing this, the Demon King's lips curled into a very satisfied smirk. The system added a reminder, the clone will use 10% of your daily energy. The Demon King then cast the spell and sneered, is this all it can do? The system quickly retorted, let's be fair. Unlike you, the hero doesn't even know who they're fighting. She finished creating the clone and dismissed the thought. The Demon King's clone had now formed and stated conclusively, even if she used her full power, the result would still be the same. Afterwards, her clone headed straight for the door. She walked up and opened the massive doors of the castle. Looking up at the clear blue sky, she was incredibly excited for the day she would finally meet the hero. Her face beamed with confidence as she smiled. Now that I'm here, you have no chance of winning. Meanwhile, Frey was struggling against his turbulent memories. He also realized his consciousness was fading, a side effect of this forced regression, and then Frey woke up in the middle of a vast forest. Holding his head, he looked around wondering why he was here. He stood up to get a better look. The place seemed very similar to when, he was in Feli. A moment later, Frey mused, it seems the system has plunged me into another memory. He recalled what had happened earlier. He silently hoped that the same things from last time wouldn't reappear. Suddenly, someone behind him began to call out, calling for his mom. Frey heard the voice and found it somewhat familiar. He looked toward the sound and the person was none other than his younger self. Frey also remembered this was when he and his mother got separated on the mountain behind the manor. Thinking of this made him wonder, so where is my mother? Just then a monster let out a ferocious roar. It was a werewolf with a massive body. However, Frey couldn't recall ever meeting it before. The werewolf steadily advanced on the young boy. The sight made Frey grow anxious. The werewolf then lunged from its spot, and it wasn't hard to guess that it was charging. Straight for the younger Frey. The future hero could only watch in terror, fearing his past self was about to die.